He can be the best in the league, but we're supposed to sit here and think he can't get any better just because he had one down year.
Yeah, Mark, have you been watching the press conference this morning? I don't know if you could talk, Mark. It just switched.
They had to get rid of Aaron Rodgers to make him happy.
Well,
All right, I'm here. Good morning.
hey, Mark. Good morning. Did you have you watched any of the press conference this morning?
I saw Muji's presser yesterday. I did not. Did Glenn have a conference? That one I missed.
Yeah, no, he's on live now. So,
Oh, okay.
but good
All
morning,
right.
June.
I'm not watching that because I'm here.
Yeah, no,
But
I watched a little of it before I got on here. Man, Aaron Glenn is compared to Saleh. He's the complete opposite, man. He doesn't tell.
It's all.
It's good.
It's also a whole different regime now with Aaron not running every facet of everything that
Yeah.
Rodgers, that is.
Morning, June.
That was a disaster.
Morning.
Yeah, you're
Absolutely disaster.
Buckeye. You know what? As much as with Rodgers, I agree, man. Everything was based around like they went to Aaron for everything, like the media, and now it's complete. That's a good point, man. I agree with that.
That's a terrible point. Can
Why?
I respond to this, please?
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because you guys ever work somewhere and a former employee's gone, and then they pin everything that was ever wrong at the workplace on that employee because it's safe for everybody who sticks around. Anyone ever go through that experience?
Nah, Mark.
You guys are acting like the special teams and the penalties and the rest of it, like all of that's Rodgers. Guys, if you're willing to sweep all that shit under the rug, what happens when that shit resurfaces and Rodgers is gone? Then what will you say?
Well, Mark, I'm not saying.
I don't like that point at all.
All right,
I'm
Mark,
sorry.
I'm not saying it was all him, but he's right though. It's a complete different regime. Like there's no going to, Ulbrich and saying, "Do you miss Sal?" None of that shit's going to happen now. And nobody, I don't
Look,
think.
I'm not saying his.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So how about this? Number one on the list is Saleh. Can you agree with that? Because Saleh was in charge of
Probably,
everything,
yes.
pretty much.
No.
It was Rodgers.
Oh, he says no.
It's Rodgers and Saleh, but who cares?
Yeah, there you go. I think it's a tie for first.
Hey, I just wanted to say one thing about these guys. It seems to me like this media, and the guys that we like, Samini, Kaz, all the guys, like all they tried to do, I mean, not all, but they had some questions where they were just trying to trip the guy up. Like they said, oh, Muji said yesterday that Fields is QB1. What do you think about that? Because like they're just trying to, and Glenn said he is QB1 on the depth chart right now, but Tyrod Taylor, he's going to get a chance to compete. So, now they might go running saying, oh, well, Muji said he's number one, but, Glenn said, oh, well, he'll get a chance to compete. But, it's like, I just get, why can't they just ask some straightforward questions but that just, I guess it's New York, and that's the media. But it also shows to me that, we don't have, and I say this with respect because I know, Petey, you bring in some of these guys and I like talking to them too, but we don't have a real journalist anymore, like back in the old days and maybe it's the epitome of this franchise. Like maybe if the franchise was better, we'd have better beat writers too. But
bring Manish
anyway,
back, Terrence.
Huh?
Bring Manish back.
No, absolutely. But it's indicative of what I'm saying. He was there during the decline too. Just the decline is so now it's like 15 years that basically he's like in the first part of the decline. He was the one that started Suffer Sam, if you remember.
Yeah.
Terrence, to your point, I mean, if we're being brutally honest about all of this, like the beat are not fans, right? I think we all can agree on that point. The beat functions a large way like content creators who either tweet based off of whatever Glenn ate for lunch and they function off engagement and cash, okay, and views. So I just look at it like that's the lens. I could give a fuck, to be blunt about it. I want the team to win. So like, and a lot of people in here want the same thing as that. So like, our perspective is going to be totally different, and that's why we talk about it in that light. Like, who cares if we say something? But I don't care if people, look at it or hear it or what. Like, if the team wins and I'm 100% wrong about Fields, like I'll be doing cartwheels with every other fan because they're winning. You know what I mean? Just a different perspective.
No, I agree. I mean, what I'm saying is it's the second interview they had with him. And like, to me, they're already trying to trip him up. That's all. I mean, there'll be time for that because, we're going to lose some games and, he's going to be under he's going to be under the heat. And something's going to come out because let's face it, he does have that personality. Like he's already telling them, like, listen, and like somebody asked him a question about Stevens again, like maybe 2 or 3 minutes after somebody else did. He said, I already asked that question, but he repeated what he said, like, so that's the kind of attitude he has. And I think it's good. It's not Salah, but at the same time, it could also work against him, like, when it's a tough loss and he says something that's too abrasive. But, all of that will come, like you said, when we see the performance out on the field. And he's talking about he's amping up his coaching staff. He feels the coaching staff is going to get the most out of Justin Fields. And it's not just Hangstrom, it's the entire coaching staff. And he feels that some of the deficiencies that Stevens had at the Ravens, that they're going to work on that too. And, like that's what he's preaching right now. And that's good. But, we'll see what happens when the season starts and as the season progresses. But I like it so far. And I'm not, it doesn't matter if it was Glenn, it could have been Vrabel or whatever. But it's just, to me, just ask the questions. But, why start already trying to trip the guy up? That's all.
I want to see Fields have more than 2 weapons to evaluate the kid. That's what I want.
Let me say this. This is one thing that Salah would not have done this morning that I heard about Sauce. Samini asked him a question, and Glenn said everything about, and he mentioned he's got to, get turnovers. Salah would have never said that. So there's accountability now. Listen, I know it's young, it's early. People are going to say he's not going to make it after 2-3 years. Who cares? At least there's fucking accountability. And I'm happy with that. So,
Pete, do you feel this team has enough weapons to evaluate a quarterback?
Not yet. No. He said.
Can I say? Oh my God! Can I say something about this, please?
Wait, Mark. Pete. I want to say one more thing. I did also learn that Tanner N, whatever his name is, worked under Harbaugh in Michigan, I believe. So Glenn mentioned that too.
Oh, probably sign steal then. That's good.
Wow.
So, all right. Look, so you have Fields, right? And you have. I just don't want the Jets to, like. Let's not make this mistake. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have Fields. Okay, you're going to have Garrett Wilson. All right, they signed Josh Reynolds, which that actually happened. We didn't have a room on Friday, but we should talk about Josh Reynolds. Okay, they have Breece Hall. I think they're going to end up adding, if they don't add in the first round, they're going to have a quality tight end on the roster that's not named Ruckert or Stone Smart. Let's not create the excuse factory before we even get into the season when it comes to Justin Fields not having weapons.
You just went to Josh Reynolds, Mark. You literally, like,
Josh. Well, let's talk about Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, I like this should be a short conversation, but go ahead.
Okay, so Josh Reynolds, well, for folks that don't know, Josh Reynolds, what 2 years as a wide receiver too, mind you, in Detroit. This is a guy who Muji and Glenn and Engstrom are all familiar with. Okay, he's a gritty player. He goes to Denver, and it doesn't work out. He gets hurt, has some legal trouble, and the rest of it gets in trouble a little bit. Okay, got it. Listen, it works out for the Jets because they're able to get this guy on the cheap. But don't act like he did not function as a wide receiver 2 in Detroit. And the Jets, please, we're really going to beat up Josh Reynolds after looking at what the depth chart looks like after Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, but that's more a reflection of what the depth chart.
And he's a big body guy, 6'3". He's got watch him play.
It's more a reflection of what the depth chart is.
Yes, Buckeye. His numbers are eerily similar to Lazard. Just so you
know.
Yeah,
right. So were you excited about Lazard?
No.
He catches the ball. Lazard drops it. That's the difference.
I agree.
He's a 3.
Jones has his hand up. Let him
thanks a lot.
I
Go
remember
ahead,
Josh
Jones.
Reynolds dropping critical balls in that NFC game in the playoffs. He's dropped.
Tell him.
He's dropped. Listen, I stay in the state of Michigan. He was getting slandered just like Alan Lazard was. But
Tell him.
he's a good guy though. You know, he's a replica of Alan Lazard. Literally, it's no positives. It's no negatives from bringing him on
He
this
did
team.
have a good. He was pretty, but he had a good, decent playoff game too. To be
Yeah,
honest, what? Right? Am I right?
yeah, he did. He did. But when it comes down to it, he's still going to be considered when money is on the table. He's a wide receiver 3,
Yeah,
and
he's like a Corey
yeah.
Davis
Hey,
type.
Mark, can you read Neil's comment, please?
I will.
Why don't you read it?
Reynolds
You're
was not
infatuated.
a
Go
wide
ahead.
Yo,
What
receiver
did he
too.
say?
It's okay.
Buckeye,
He also
Buckeye is
played well with
hilarious.
the Rams too, by the way.
Mark, can you please read Neil? My eyes are blurry this morning. Can you read Neil's comment
If
for me,
folks
please?
want me to read out their tweets, listen, please contribute to Jets Commute, and I'll read your statement on air.
Please,
Okay.
please, Buckeye, please get your dollar reader glasses on. Don't start, man.
He wants the green goggle glasses. That's what he wants. But I
Listen,
think I agree with Mark.
I-
I agree with Mark a little bit. I think he's a wide receiver 3-4, but there is a gap between Garrett Wilson and the next guy, and we're hoping to fill that. But yeah, let Reynolds play wide receiver 2 right now, and hope that whoever we draft in the second or third round, if we take Tyler Warren at 7 and we get another wide receiver in the draft, let's hope that somewhere midway through the season the light turns on for that rookie and he helps make contributions too.
I don't look at it as wide receiver again. I look at it as playmaker. I wouldn't be mad if he's wide receiver 2 if we had a very efficient run game and our tight end was reliable. We drafted a tight end and he was reliable and Garrett was reliable and our running backs were. But if they're gonna be trying to pass the ball, a good amount, then I'm not comfortable with him there.
Then I want a tight
I'm
end
listening.
1 and a real RB 1A.
I'm listening to Buckeye, and I think that like it's lost on what he's trying to say. Like this reminds me of last year saying your tight end room was great
Mm-hmm.
and one of the better tight end rooms. Like it's okay to say we'll throw a dart at this guy, maybe, but is he gonna? In my opinion, Jets need receivers that are gonna elevate because you don't have a quarterback that's gonna elevate receivers. I don't think Reynolds is that, nor like I thought it was funny last year. I thought your tight end room was one of the worst in the league, not anywhere close to being one of the best.
Yeah, Dale,
All true.
I definitely shot down the Jeremy Ruckert stuff because he stinks. So I wasn't the one. I didn't get that from Mark though about our wide receiver room is not that good right now. Besides Wilson,
But
Well,
hold on.
so
PD,
Mark
I'll
said
say
that he
this
was a
much.
wide receiver 2 in
Well,
Detroit,
and
right?
PD, I'll say this much:
okay.
Jets fans were hard on Lazard over the last 5-6 years. Lazard's fucking been twice the player Josh Reynolds has been, bro. Alan Lazard's got a
Well,
lot
their
of touchdowns,
his
man.
okay. His stats are really similar if you look at them.
All
I'm
right.
not
Look,
sticking up for it, but
I'm sticking up for Josh Reynolds, and I'll tell you why I am.
go
Because
ahead,
Josh
Mark.
Reynolds was a
Why?
wide receiver 2 in an offense. If you listen to the whole story, he in an offense that featured Laporta. So the point is, they're looking for role players in this offense. They're looking for a wide receiver 2 who fits alongside a quality pass catching tight end. That's how it's going to work.
Yeah, but
They're trying to fit puzzle pieces together. So to shit on Reynolds and somehow elevate Lazard. Sorry, Dale. I watched Lazard drop critical possessions on third down and do some other boneheaded shit and get caught for holding to
I
bring
get
shit
that,
back. Like, I'm not
Mark,
doing cartwheels for Lazard, which, by the
Mark,
way, they're probably going to restructure. They're trying to
Mark,
right now.
get that, but what I'm trying to say is they're the same guy, and the reason why look, was he a wide receiver 2 in Detroit out of necessity? The first chance they got to get another guy that was faster to be wide receiver 2, they did. So much so they
Dale,
drafted him
imagine
knowing he
being
wasn't going to play for
Buffalo
a
and
year.
criticizing the Jets wide receiver room, Dale. Come on.
That's a bad flex, Mark.
It's a bad flex, especially because I got a quarterback that can elevate anyone. So we can afford that. And I'm saying in a sense, like, I'm not speaking for Buckeye, but I think he sees what I see. Reynolds with Josh Allen will have a fucking productive season. Reynolds with fucking whatever quarterback you're going to try out there as a number 2, I don't know if he's going to help you.
I think you're missing the point in terms of what the Jets are going to be wanting to do on offense. Like, if this were going to be, they're expecting Justin Fields to drop back 40 attempts, then what you're saying would be hitting targets, but it's not. They're going to be running. We're going to see more design runs and pistol formation and RPOs and zone reads, and the amount of runs this offense is going to be putting together. And now, oh my God, dude, I can't believe they got Josh Reynolds, and we're arguing about whether or not he's a 2 or a 3. Like, I think you guys are missing the point.
We're missing the point, Mark.
Yes.
June,
so there's other things.
June, remove the mute and start talking. Your co-host,
wait,
is hurting the room right now.
I'm happy. I'm enjoying.
He's got popcorn.
Right
Let his popcorn heat up. Jude's got heat the Pop-Tart. We're good. Pete, there's other things that got said in this conference, by the way, that we should cover outside of now that obviously fans are already picking
Mark,
shit on Reynolds.
And Mark, enlighten me, please. Pause.
Well, the other things, so because again, okay, so Muji talked about locking up the quarterbacks. He talked about this in his press, and I was like, wait a second, what's he talking about? So they wanted Fields for a lot of different reasons. And they wanted Jamie Sherwood because they wanted the guy who's the green dot. They wanted quarterbacks on both sides of the field. That caught my ear because there were some folks who were trying to tell us that Jamie Sherwood wouldn't fit in a Glenn or a Wilkes defense. So I'm glad we got some information from those guys about locking up a player, a homegrown player, and kind of getting that sorted to move forward. Like,
did they lock up the right linebacker? Because I think Quincy, if they don't lock up Quincy and we lose him, they blew it again.
But they don't.
I don't know.
But Hector, they don't have to lock him up right now. He's under contract.
Yeah, I know that.
And they own his rights next year.
Watch when he sits
it's
out.
going to sound wild. It's going to sound wild. They could franchise tag him which I wouldn't do, but they could use that if they need it.
Right, I get that,
just
Petey,
saying.
but you're talking about because you're saying they can franchise Wilson, they can franchise.
Wilson. No. Wilson and Sauce are down the road.
How far down the road is it?
2 years.
Let me ask you, who's the better player?
In my eyes,
it's not even close.
Oof. What? It's Garrett?
No, I'm talking about Sherwood.
No, he's talking Quincy versus Sherwood.
It's not even close.
Oh.
Quincy makes the impact plays.
Quincy makes it exactly.
Sherwood's chasing guys down, when they're 6 yards past the line.
Sherwood also
That's
has
a fact,
Sherwood
that's
also is going to have more time to on his potential now. So he's young. He's got 3 years to elevate his game.
Big enough, man.
Right. Okay, right now Quincy Williams for sure, but Jamie and Sherwood is breaking Jet records for tackles. Like a Jet hasn't done that in a long time. Which doesn't matter.
Our defensive line stunk. And where was he making the tackles at?
10 yards downfield.
Yeah.
So Jamie and Sherwood. Okay, so Hector. So Jamie and Sherwood didn't deserve that contract from the Jets because he would have got paid elsewhere.
Money. I don't care what
another team
is going to do.
Well, listen, I thought he made too much money. I thought he got too much money, but who
You're
am
right,
I?
he did.
Right. So now do they have
I do
enough
too,
to pay?
but 2 years from now it may be just
because I heard that somebody said now we're going to be able to extend Quincy. He's going to have an attitude. I would have an attitude if I'm the better linebacker and I'm making chump change. Where if I blow my knee, I'm done.
And Heck, I was thinking about that real quick, right, Heck? And to your point, there's a possibility that Quincy gets traded on draft night.
Yeah.
By the way, June,
He's
wait,
also
let me
20.
let me talk to June real quick. June, you mentioned something a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, and I think this is building a little bit of steam. I think the Jets might there's a chance they could draft Will Campbell.
Told you.
Put him at guard.
You know what? Not even.
I think with the arm length now, he's going to play right tackle.
You move him to right,
saying.
And just in case anything happened to Olu, you got a seamless transition. Just you moving from right to left.
So
you want your tackles being able to play left or right, and both of them.
Look, I just told you they need weapons for Justin Fields.
Is AVT
so we're going to get Campbell?
Are they planning to move AVT?
We need a lot of
offensive line is a weapon, Mark. You need to protect the quarterback.
Are they going to get rid of AVT?
Because
All right.
because Mark, hold on, Mark. If you want to get technical in chronological Torres's terms,
I do.
okay. Glenn this morning
Chronological
said
Taurus is nasty. Go ahead.
he did say that Justin Fields, somebody brought up about him not being able to process, and Aaron Glenn said he watched film and he's like, at Ohio State, he was processing everything. I know it's college, but he did say
We
that,
can't do
Mark. So
that. Listen,
why
first of
can't he,
all,
Mark?
I'm going to tell you why. Okay, the job of a head coach is 100% to bolster the confidence of his quarterback. I totally get it. All right, I understand that, but let's not act like the talent gap, the amount of time that you have, the space between receivers. I don't even watch a lot of college, and I could tell. I don't watch any college, and I could tell you the space between, blown coverages, the space between receivers and their coverage. Like it's a totally different. It's a lot more forgiving. The NFL is not. No one is going to say that Justin Fields.
So this time you don't want to listen to Glenn at the presser. You really want to pick him apart.
I
But the
was
win
thinking
now
the same
thing,
thing.
Yeah,
win now was
exactly.
higher than holy when he
What?
said that.
Yeah,
No, I gave you the context. You can choose to
all
ignore it or
over
not.
the place.
The language,
Does
Hey,
it
at
can
anybody
least
work.
think?
It can work
hold
for me
on,
this
hold on.
way. It can
At
work
least
for me
at
that
least
way.
at least Mark didn't take a deep breath on that when three people came at him. So good job, Mark.
No, listen. I mean, look, you can hear the context of what I'm saying or not, and these guys could see it a certain way, and they're saying it from the podium, and I totally get it. That's fine.
Mark,
They
but
also are
even if Mark,
saying, yeah,
Mark,
go ahead.
real quick, but even if there's context to it, you're contradicting the point.
No, I think. Look, and again, I need to watch the presser
No.
from Glenn. No, I need to watch and hear it from him. I watched the Muji one. Like I have a sense of what the guy
But
said.
Mark, he just said it though, Mark. Like
Yeah, but
what's
I
the
gotta
what's
hear it.
what
You know how stuff gets
okay.
spun in here. I gotta hear it myself.
Okay. All right.
Mark's off
So
to the study
all
room.
right.
Come back, Mark.
Petey, refer to June
Hey,
as first
does
place AL
anybody
East,
does
June, from now
anybody
on.
think they moved
Oh God,
Pittman to
stop with
guard?
this freaking Yankee stuff.
Does anybody think they moved Pittman to guard and trade ABT?
What?
No,
No.
if you listen to the presser, I'm. If you listen to Muji's presser, I'm good. Like they, if you listen, there's no stutter when he says that ABT's a guard. Straight away, player about,
Right.
and that's exactly what the guy
But
is.
now they're
And that
saying there's
actually
going to be
gave me.
competition at center.
No,
Yeah,
he
which that
said no,
Go ahead,
no,
Mark. What
no.
Mark?
That's
What
not
did
what
he
he
say,
said.
Mark? What did he say? He'll be right
This is what I'm
behind his
talking about.
heels.
You gotta listen to. He's like, it's like, look, Fields is the starter, and he's like, oh, but Tyrod's right on his heels. It's a turn of phrase. Like everyone knows that Fields is going to have a chance to start in New York, and if you're wondering about that, it's not just those words. You got to look at everything that's happening, because you got to look at why didn't Justin Fields stay with the Steelers? The Steelers were not ready to hand Justin Fields the starting job. They
Oh
wanted
no,
him
no,
to
no, no.
compete for it.
Don't say that. That's they don't even have a quarterback yet, Mark.
Okay,
So
provide me evidence.
Who is he not?
Provide me evidence that Justin Fields was going to get handed the starting job in Pittsburgh, and I'll shut up about it.
Provide me evidence that he
was. Is that fair? I think that's fair. I don't think that they were going to hand him the job. He was clearly going to get handed the job in New York.
So he wasn't. So he's not the number one quarterback in Pittsburgh if you sign right there.
I think if he signs in Pittsburgh, well, it depends on the dollars that they sign him for in Pittsburgh. If they give him clear starter money,
who is he competing?
But they didn't want to do that. Listen, keep in mind. By the way, they just play. Listen, look at the whole field. Is what I'm saying. He leaves.
He
leaves Chicago
with the Steelers, though. To be
fair, he
fair.
leaves Chicago.
But Petey,
and his stock is through the floor.
Is he competing against in Pittsburgh?
Nobody right now.
Mason Rudolph.
Wait a minute, Russ.
So he didn't. The Jets offered him $5 million a year more, and he probably liked the fact that they probably said, "Justin, we really like you," and I don't know what they said.
We want you to start.
We want
That's
you to
what they were
start.
thinking.
But Mark, you have to
That's
tell
what
me
the thing was.
who is going to start over Fields in Pittsburgh. You have to answer that.
Nobody.
Well, Mark said they clearly weren't offering him the job.
They weren't.
Well,
because he didn't
deducing
sign.
that.
Well,
I'm deducing exactly. So if you want to ignore that, that's fine.
But it was money.
I'm telling you what I'm seeing, which is that
money.
Well, it was money in the starting job, is my point. I don't think that they were going to clearly, if they would have given him a lot more money in Pittsburgh, right, and said, "Listen, Justin, you're the starter," I think he would have stayed in Pittsburgh.
Okay,
I think they gave him a chance to be the starter.
You keep saying the job. You have to tell me who he was competing against in Pittsburgh that he wasn't going to get the starting job. You keep saying that.
But
Well, did he get benched for Russell Wilson?
Yeah, who was
Russell's
the guy?
gone. Russell's a
I
giant.
Who's the
understand that, but
backup?
if you would want to ignore the timeline, that's fine.
Mark, he's
I'm not.
nitpicking. I'm going to pull a Terrence here. He's
That's
nitpicking
crazy.
you like the
That's
Jets media
fine.
is towards Glenn.
Buckeye,
Yeah, I know. If you want to do that, it's fine. I'm just
Buckeye,
telling you what I'm
you
seeing.
have to look
Let
at
John.
Go
Tomlin's
ahead.
presser and look at the total context.
Yeah, you guys like to ignore. You pick and choose based on what you already think, because that's the easy
Wait,
mode.
wait,
I'm not
hold on,
playing
real
easy
quick.
mode. Go
Mark,
ahead.
let's get to Jonathan because he's been waving his hand. Jonathan, I never heard you before. What's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? I respect your everything you guys do every morning. I'm a Steelers fan, so I just like the input on the whole Justin Fields thing. I think it
Oh,
goes
Please.
back to
Good
thanks.
morning.
the very beginning of like training camp and everything. Tomlin literally came out and said Russell Wilson is the quarterback one of the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into that season. And I think when they handed everything over to Justin Fields based off of a crazy injury that Russell Wilson occurred, it was more about what Tomlin wanted out of the offense. I think Justin Fields did everything in his power to like control, not turning the ball over, extending plays with his legs, and just, those first few games we played really mediocre teams, but I think if you were a Jets fan, if you go back and look at Justin Fields against the Cowboys, I think that was the turning point where Tomlin really had to evaluate where this team was going and why he ended up switching back to Russell Wilson. So, I mean, to say that Justin Fields never really had the opportunity to be the QB1 in Pittsburgh, I don't think that's accurate. I think he did. And I just really think that, Fields had a really bad taste in his mouth when the Steelers didn't look at him when they were in a losing streak at the end of the year. I think that's what it came down to when he signed with the Jets. I don't think money had anything to do with it. It was dude, you're 0-4 and you're going to the playoffs and you're gonna lose to the Ravens. Why aren't you looking at me again? It was not money. It was not at all money. Steelers turned their back on Justin Fields and he walked. And I don't blame the guy. I really think he was the Steelers' option number one this year in the postseason, and they screwed it up. And guess what? We have our pants down right now. We have no one at quarterback, and it sucks. I would love Justin Fields as our quarterback, as a bridge year guy. But that's just not the reality, and I don't blame the dude for taking more money and moving on. But you know what I mean? I don't think you guys are set up in a bad position. I really don't. I think you got to give Fields more credit than he's due. I think he's going to do really good for you guys this year. You guys are
Jonathan, you're
going to be
welcome
shocked.
anytime, bro. Be a co-host,
Jonathan,
please.
can I ask you a question? I have a question
Stop,
for you.
Buckeye.
Yeah, go
Heading
ahead.
into
Go ahead.
the no, he said. Listen, he said a lot that he said a lot that I agree with, and this is why I do this, by the way, to get context from folks that actually
Oh,
watch
yeah.
their
So
team's
we don't,
games.
right.
I appreciate that.
Hmm.
So, Jonathan, let me ask you a question. Heading into the league year, like as Fields was figuring out where he was going to be, do you think that the Steelers organization said, Justin, we want you to be the starting quarterback heading into 2025?
I don't think so. I think the Steelers said, "Hey, you're going to be given the opportunity to compete, but it's going to be up to you. What do you do? What do you do in the OTAs, and how do you move this offense forward?" And I think his agent has to do with that too. I think like moving on from Chicago, and then he's like, "Hey, dude, you want to just go? You want to learn real football in Pittsburgh with a good, credible head coach?" And not necessarily start, but maybe you gain more of like, hey, this is what a professional is in a professional team that competes year in and year out. Would you rather that for a year and then move on elsewhere? Maybe his agent has a lot to do with that, but I'm just grateful we did have him for those 6 games. That's all I'm saying. He contributed a lot, but I don't know. I think it was more of what the Steelers did to Justin Fields is the reason he walked away. I don't think it was money, anything. It was we didn't go back to the guy, and we sucked. We sucked at the end of the year, and we kept Russell Wilson in there.
Yo, this guy sounds like a young Meek.
That is true, but he just spit a lot of
Jonathan,
logic.
thanks, man.
And I think, Mark, drink coffee and come back, please.
Yo, good medic. What's up, man? Good
90% of what he said I agree with, dude. This is great. I don't know who you're dunking on, Buckeye. He made a lot of sense, and I like hearing from fans from other fan bases who actually watch the games. It's
He
nice.
debunks everything you said.
What are you talking about, debunked?
Buckeye,
He just said he was
didn't
not
watch
handed the starting
Steelers
job in
like this
Pittsburgh.
kid,
You don't listen,
Buckeye.
dude.
Medic, what's up, brother? Good morning.
What's going on, June? Good morning, everybody. How we doing?
Good morning, bro.
So, man, the AVT. We already been told what's going on with the O-line. AVT staying where he is. Is there a struggle for the center position? There's going to be a push. You know, we already heard that. I definitely think now, after hearing a lot of what he said, I think they're going to get that left tackle. And I don't like the idea of getting a left tackle and converting him. I don't like that idea. We tried that once with somebody, and that didn't work out too well. So I like the press conference. I like the attitude of what I saw. He reminds me of the old school Jets, you know, back in the days when we used to have a fucking attitude. So he handled the press well, which is great, and he didn't try to.
Good point, man.
He didn't try to finesse these reporters. He told them how he felt. So that's a good feeling moving forward.
Does it concern people though that if Tippmann loses the job, then he's saying he doesn't give a f about Joe Douglas's picks? Nothing. There's accountability now. What, Mark?
Look, if Tippmann loses the job in the middle, good. That's where I'm at with this, and I'll tell you why. Because if last year they were functioning under a sense of entitlement of players being, if what folks are saying is true, okay, folks were entitled and they were just getting their positions and they got complacent, whatever, and you're creating competition, I don't see how that's a problem. Listen, there's a lot to like at Tippmann's game, but
Yeah.
I don't like high snaps in the timing fucking offense. Like the center to quarterback exchange is very important. It starts every play. Okay, so if the real coaching can get Tippmann to have his snaps under control and then he can build off of last year, then great. But listen, if your center and your quarterback are on the same page and your quarterback has a level of comfort with the center, that's not a small thing. And the fact that this guy, they've got the whole Ohio State connection, it's not like this guy Myers is a backup. The guy started in Green Bay.
Right.
So it's not so far-fetched. And listen, now they've got insurance. Folks are complaining about depth. Guess what? You got a former starting center from Green Bay that is familiar with their quarterback. You have a starting center in Tippmann. You have ABT, who they say is a guard, but if in case of emergency, they can always plug him in at right tackle. If something bad, like I'm fine with how they're constructing this.
Mark, let me ask you something. Does it bother you that they announced that AVT is a guard now? Because then that should kind of showing their hand a little bit.
You know what, Pete? Honestly, I'm just like a drowning man. No, I'm like a drowning man.
Mark,
I'm looking for signs of competence.
No, I need context because I just asked you a question.
Pete, look, I am like a drowning man, Pete. When it comes to this, I'm looking for signs of competence out of the front office. When I watch ABT, when a lot of us watch ABT play, he's a guard. Like he has a potential to be one of the best guards. It was my opinion when he was drafted. And then through his play, he can play tackle, but he's a great guard. And then being like, oh, he's a guard immediately, it's like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like eyes on AVT, the guy is a great guard, but they need a tackle. Like I'm looking for signs of competence. I don't care if they're showing their hand. Sorry, go ahead, Hector.
No, I was just looking at because I'm still thinking about the Sherwood money, and like I just think we need a linebacker that can, really make impact plays. And I would love to have like a Matt Milano, somebody that's nasty. And I don't think Sherwood's any of that.
Hector, I think they're banking on this guy. What's his name? Jamin Smith, to develop this guy. Is that his name, guys?
Yeah, Jamin Smith.
Yeah, I think they're banking on to develop that
guy. It's Jamin Davis.
Yes, Jamin Davis. My bad.
I don't know who he is.
He was a former first-round pick from the Commanders, I think, from Kentucky.
Okay, I gotta look him up. But that's the type of player that we need on defense.
Yes, but Hector, that's what they're going to want to do, though. They're going to try and develop somebody. Like, look, they're signing guys to 1-year deals. They're going to try and They're not committing to anybody long term. And maybe, they took Smith was on the team last year, and they're going to try and develop him and coach him up. Like, look at what the Jets did with Quincy Williams. The coaching got Quincy Williams better, no?
100% better. I remember people wanted this kid off the team, and now he's one of the best linebackers on the team.
And
He
now,
has all the
Hector, you're
skills.
worried that he's going to leave. So
here, let me say this, please, because I don't get June is right. Can I say that? So June is right.
Oh.
It's Jamin Davis. They signed up for a 1 yarder. 1 year. He's a first rounder.
They signed
Former
him for
first
a
rounder.
1 yarder.
For a 1 yarder, okay. And then they also have Zaire Barnes that they drafted in the 6th round. And look, man, it's a defensive-minded head coach, and you have Steve Wilkes in there. Something tells me they're going to find a way to get the linebacker room right. Like, you got to hope for that, right?
Yep.
So let me ask you a question. Do you go linebacker in this year's draft?
In what round?
Maybe
in
later on.
In the later rounds.
Yeah, maybe like
yes.
Day 3.
Yes. Over quarterback.
What? So now Fields is going to hit?
No, I don't need to draft this 3rd, 4th round quarterback, and just what these picks have to be like players on the field. We have too much.
Wait, so you're going to throw away a linebacker on a pick, but you're not going to take a quarterback when you don't know what Fields is?
We know what Fields is.
We don't need to use this year. Go ahead.
Have you not watched him play? We know what he does.
Mark, hold on, medic. Wait. Mark, come on. What is you're saying that we're going to stink with him? But I don't.
What I'm saying
Mark,
is
I don't
that
get it though. No, I know what you're saying, Mark, and then you're going to explain. Well, you didn't listen to me in context.
Yeah, Petey. Now you're doing it, Petey.
No, well,
I know. This is what we're doing now. Look, Pete,
Mark,
if you don't have a court,
Mark, can I just finish my point, please?
Yes.
As you would say, I'm not saying that to be critical of you, but I'm sitting here, whatever, driving or whatever, and hearing this, and it's like, wait a second, Mark, you're saying that it's going to stink, and now you're changing it up. Like, how do we know this?
I'm not.
Okay.
Pete, let me ask the room a question.
Please.
Okay, well, let's imagine. Okay, let me ask this question then: do the Jets have a long-term answer at quarterback?
No. We don't know.
Probably not, but we don't definitively know.
No,
we don't know. Okay,
you don't.
Yeah, we don't know, Mark.
Mark, as of right now, no. They even asked him.
Okay, thank you.
They even asked Glenn today. I think it was Samini asked him about Jordan Travis, and Glenn said, "I don't know. I'm not a doctor." That was hilarious.
Yeah,
that was something you would say.
Jordan Travis is not even going to be a Jet this year.
He's going to compete. That's what he said.
Yep.
Look, Jordan Davis is not even going to be here this year, I don't think.
For folks that are dancing around it, the Jets do not have a long-term answer.
No, they don't, Mark.
They
don't.
No. Holy P, can I finish the thought?
Yes,
man,
Mark.
Dude.
Yeah.
The other half of that thought is that depending on how you watch football and how you want to build teams, when you don't have a long-term answer at quarterback, you take a quarterback every year and hope that you hit. Okay. That's the philosophy. That's the philosophy I like. Maybe that's too old school, but that's how I was taught.
So who do you want? Who do you want? McCord, Howard, Shubb? Like, who do you want to be your answer in there?
Well, I was up on McCord. I was up on that. But, I mean, with them taking Fields, do they really – are they telegraphing that they want a more mobile – like, is that the route that they want to go in terms of how Engstrom wants his offense to function?
So you want
That's
Milroe.
the part that's giving me pause. Well, no, it's not about who I – Buckeye, listen, I don't care. It's not about what I want. I'm trying to talk about what I think they're going to do. That's the difference. Like, I don't know what they're going to do.
I think there's so many holes in this roster. You plug holes that we need plugged on this field, and you worry about quarterback next year if we need to worry about quarterback next year, which we probably will.
Yep.
Well, that's why you get – so you're going to – okay, so then – all right, so Q, we're in week 8. And folks are crying because in the draft, the Jets did not take a quarterback. And one of these young guys is starting to look like something. Because you never know, man. It's unpredictable.
None of these guys are, See, I agree with you with drafting a quarterback every year, but as
really,
far as
Medic. So going into the draft, you were high on Brock Purdy. You thought he'd be a starter. You thought, come on, man.
Mark,
No
Purdy's
one
another
knows.
exception, though, Mark. Come on,
I
Mark.
agree we should draft a
Purdy's an
quarterback every year, but
exception.
I don't want to be reaching in the early rounds for a quarterback when we have players that we know that can start that we need.
You can take.
I agree with that. I never said I never said reach early on. Of course not.
That's what it sounded like.
No.
In the second and third round,
People don't listen.
if we take a running back, that running back is probably our running back for the next 3 years.
I don't think they should take a running back either. I think that's dumb. But that's my personal opinion.
So,
I think you have
what's your
Brees.
plan after this year?
Wait, hold on.
No, I think.
Wait, hold on.
You think Brees is competing for the Jets next year?
Look,
I think you run. You see what you have in Brees this year. You drafted 2 running backs last year. So wait a second. So now you're not taking a quarterback, but you're taking another running back and a linebacker.
Okay.
Mark, we don't have the replacement.
This strategy
Brees,
makes no
Brees
sense.
is gone.
wait, hold on. Wait. Hold on.
I think
Allow me to introduce the honorary member of the 34 team, Mr. John Vogel. John, good morning, brother.
Oh
Good
man.
morning, God. Petey, did I get the day right? Were we talking this Monday or next Monday?
Well, I actually forgot about the NFL annual meetings, John. But no, we're just in a nice heated debate, So no, you did not forget. You got it right. Hope you're well. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Good.
Again, thank you, June, for the honorary 34th team membership. I appreciate that.
Yes, indeed, brother. Yes, indeed.
John, you may have some enemies on here, but it won't get personal. Don't worry. John, let
No,
me
it's
ask
all
you
good.
something.
It's all good.
Listen, I know you do the draft and all that, but real quick, before we get into some players now, with the Jets announcing that AVT is going to be the right guard or whatever, what's your overall about? Do you think the Jets are going to completely stink next year with what they've done in the offseason and kind of tooled, rebuild, whatever people want to call it?
That's a good question. I think the way that I'm kind of seeing it up to this point is they're just looking to be competitive. Um, there's a difference, but I think we talked about this last time I was on with you guys, but there's a difference between being competitive um and winning games. And so I think that's what they're just kind of trying to do is they're trying to make sure they got the competitive edge. Because when you're competitive, you're in games, you're fighting to the end, you're in it till the fourth quarter. And as a rebuilding team with a with new head coaching and new coaching staff, a new front office, you want to be competitive because that's what's going to help you bring the free agents in next off season, right? That's what makes players want to play for you coming out of the draft. And so I think what they're just really trying to do is they're just trying to be competitive. Um, that can go so many different ways, especially if Justin Fields is the answer to the quarterback situation, as you guys were just debating. Because if he is, then you see a rise like Washington this year, because Washington wasn't trying to go to an NFC championship game. They were just trying to be competitive. Um, and so they brought in a lot of these depth guys, a lot of guys to build their rotations out, especially on the defensive line, and just tried to hit on their draft picks, and it accumulated into an NFC championship appearance. Um, and they have their quarterback of the future answered. So I think that's what the Jets are really just trying to do, is they're just trying to be competitive. And if they have to answer the quarterback question, that'll be next year.
John, let me ask you something. You were doing this obviously for a while now. Where did you have Fields on your quarterback rankings when he came out? Did you
I
have him
had
Did you have him above a Zach Wilson?
I did,
Okay.
yes. So Zach was not a guy that I was very excited about in that class. I think I had him. Yeah, it would have been Lawrence. Lawrence by far and away the best quarterback, and then I had Fields and Mac Jones kind of very close. In fact, they may have had the same number grade with the system I was doing at the time. And then I think there was another quarterback. I can't remember who else was in that class. Oh, Lance. It was Lance, and then it was Wilson. So Fields, the thing about Fields that kind of pushed him up was he wasn't as developed as a passer, and the half field progression reads that Ohio State runs kind of hurt his development in terms of processing. But he had a great the athletic ability that was through the charts. Um, and I think that's what we saw this past year at Pittsburgh is that kind of that athletic ability helped them with that really uncreative offense.
Right. John, you're not still talking, are you? Sorry.
No, I'm good.
John, I'm sorry about. I thought there was a pause in the thing. John, so before June and Mark and whoever else comes in, all right. So to the draft now, could you see the Jets taking Campbell over Membu?
I don't think Bamboo will be there at 7.
So what do you think the
Um,
Patriots are going to take him?
I think the Patriots have a very
Wow.
good chance of taking him. Um, and if you get down to 7, I know there's a lot of interest in Campbell. Um, I really have no. I have to be honest with you guys. I have no idea where the Jets are going to go right now. Um, I don't think it's going to be Campbell though.
He ain't the only
Mark.
one, John.
Yeah, you guys want to jump in here?
I would love.
Yeah, I sure
I'm
do.
about to say I want Mark to ask questions.
Yeah, John, I want to ask you about Fields and your assessment of his game today. From what you're seeing in Fields, because you mentioned this is the first time I'm hearing someone talk about what we're hearing Flowery talk about how he performed at Ohio State instead of what actually happened there. And you're saying that they give him a lot of half field reads that kind of stunted his progression. Do you think that he can function at the pro level as a pocket passer, that's part of his game? Or do you feel like the Jets would be well suited to just run this guy all over the place and simplify the game for him and take advantage of his athletic traits?
He's flashed ability to work from the pocket. I think those last 8 games he played in Chicago, you really saw him uptick. And then those first 6, 7 games he played in Pittsburgh this year, he flashed. He's not consistent yet. Um, and I think that's because there's a part of his game where he wants or a part in his, a part of his mindset. It's that he wants to lean on his athletic ability and he wants to make things happen, you know, with his legs because he's so effective at doing it. So they've kind of become a safety crutch for him over his career. Um, that being said, I think he can operate as a pocket guy, but you don't want him to be exclusively, working from the pocket. And as soon as you might have to let him run a couple times to kind of let him settle into a game, um, and not play to that West Coast pocket style offense. So it depends how you're going to design the offense around him. Um, I think that again, he's flashed and he's shown progression. He just hasn't been put into a situation in the last 2 years where you can see him continue to push on that progression. And I think that's kind of the question mark with him.
Okay, let me ask you about just one more, June, and then I'll hand it to you. So let me ask you about Membu or the 7th pick. So let's say New England does take Membu. What are they at 4?
Yeah, 4.
Where's New England? Yeah, so let's say New England takes him there. Is there, and again, Campbell's what, a guard who could play tackle, but really he's a guard? Is that the
No, I think he might be a tackle.
okay?
So since the
But
combine,
yeah,
I went back and I put on the tape on him because that was the big debate, right? Especially with the combine measurements. Oh, he's got under 33-inch arms. And you don't see the arm length really concern you on tape with him. Um, you see that he doesn't have the longest arms, but you got to understand this guy's playing in the SEC every week. And some of the best edge rushers over the last 2, 3 drafts have come out of the SEC. And he's held up extremely well against them all. Um, Yeah, do I think his feet are a little heavy? Yes. Do I think he has a weird, awkward upright stance? Absolutely. But I think you have to let him fail at tackle before you put him to guard, and I don't think he's necessarily going to fail at tackle.
Okay, so in that scenario, if Membu's gone, the Jets, if they are fixated on getting a tackle at 7, your guess would be they would take Campbell?
Yeah. If that's going to be
Okay.
the way they go, I don't think they go that route because they just took Fashanu last year. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to take a left tackle last year first round and then come back this year and take a left tackle this year first round. Even if you did project pushing them inside, you still wouldn't want to use the capital right there. So I think what you're probably looking at is, again, I have no idea where they're going to go with this. They could go quarterback. Jackson Dart very well may be there at 7. Right now, that's not going to excite anybody, but that's a possibility. Um, I think that Tyler Warren is probably in the running as well, just because of where they're positioned and what kind of holes they need to fill. He kind of helps out a lot, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Um, and then as a long shot, I think Shamar Stewart is a guy to keep an eye on there at 7. I don't think they're going to go tackle at 7.
Let me ask you about Ted, because the latest rumors. I'm curious to hear from you if you think it's are these rumors or is it like the teams really look at this? The video emerging of Ted saying that he doesn't watch film, that doesn't like to. What's your sense of that? Is that kind of some draft day smoke to try to suppress his value, or
Oh,
do you think that
I
teams are
hadn't
looking at
seen this
that?
video yet. That's interesting. So he said he
John, I'll
just
send I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he was eating while it was who knows.
no,
Go ahead, Jarek.
he
Elaborate, Jarek.
yeah, because this is nothing. This is really nothing new. He's been talking about this since he was playing in high school and he was Servite. He watches film with his team. Watches film with quarterback and with his bunch of group of receivers. But yeah, he doesn't like to watch film by himself. He just likes to. If he's gonna do it, if he's gonna do it, he's gonna watch it with just a group of his teammates. Um, he just finds it a lot easier to kind of evaluate kind of evaluate certain weaknesses. Kind of know certain assignments because he just feels like he just doesn't really know how to do it by himself yet. He's been talking about that for years.
Now, John, I just want to ask you a real quick question. Who's your number one as far as wide receivers
oh,
coming out of this
it's
class?
Tet. It's Tet.
See,
Um,
so there you have it.
I think that's interesting. I think some people will certainly run with that and use that against them. Um,
hmm
I think at the wide receiver position is probably one of the least important positions to watch tape independently. Um, if you had to pick one, obviously I want my guys to all watch tape. Um, and be able to do it on their own, go home with the iPad and stuff. But I can understand where he's kind of coming from because a lot of the things that you see on tape, you want to see with your quarterback. And the reason for that is because if there's a certain tendency that a corner's leaning on, or maybe the way the safety kind of sits in certain coverages or sets his stance, I think that's something that you want to be on the same page with your quarterback about. So that's kind of that's probably the least important position to have to worry about watching tape. If he's doing it with his teammate and with his quarterback, cool. That's perfectly fine. I wouldn't personally hold that against him, but I know some people will certainly use that against him.
And Mark,
Yeah, I'm sharing it to the jumbo. By the way, it'll load in a second.
hey Mark, for your situation, for your thoughts on what Justin Fields can do, I want you to watch the game when that Chicago played the Commanders and they won 40-20. That's a perfect measure of what Justin Fields can be. Go ahead, Buckeye.
Terrence was ahead of me. I'll wait after
Oh,
Terrence.
I'm sorry, my bad. What's up, T? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hey, John, good talking to you again. Uh, okay, so everybody feels there's a tier of 4. It's the 2 quarterbacks, it's Carter, and then it's Hunter. So, first question: who falls to 5 if the Patriots take uh, Membu? And then the overall for the Jets at 7, I fluctuate between, we're going to have all these choices between Mason Graham, Ted McMillan, Tyler Warren, maybe Membu. And then I start wondering, like, are any of these guys really worthy of the pick at 7? It's just that type of draft. Like, I mean, yeah, like you don't traditionally take a tight end at 7, but it's basically he's the best tight end in the draft with a lot of potential, and that's the way the draft is falling this year because you don't really have many tiers. But and you also talked about Stewart. Even though everybody, the knock on him is that he really didn't get much sacks at A&M. But yeah, so I mean, so would you consider like Jinty in terms of like just the best player available at 7? In terms of like the guy that maybe translates into the most wins, with the ball in his hands, or like I know you said you don't know what the Jets are doing at 7, but in your mock draft, who's there at 7, and who did you want? Who did you wind up picking for the Jets?
Well, I think that's it. There's a lot there to kind of digest. Um, I'll start with the mock draft. I had him take Shamar, and the reason that I went with that is because it's Aaron Glenn is a defensive minded coach. You have a really good opportunity to add another really special weapon to um your defensive line. You have to have a deep defensive line rotation, and Stewart is really good into that. Now, you obviously the knock on him with the production, 4.5 sacks in 3 years. There's a lot of different reasons for that. Um, I think one of the big reasons that he has that knock is because of the rules that they ran at Texas A&M, but also because they're lining him up as a wide 9 tech at 290, 295 pounds last year. Um, that's a defensive tackle screaming and still got 39 pressures off the edge. I think that's incredibly impressive. Um, Now that he's shedding some weight, he's down to 265 as his last, I think at the combine. He might be down just below that now. Um, Now you're going to let him really play defensive end, and that's where you're going to see him bring that uptick in his production, at least from a pass rushing standpoint, and maybe sacks. So Shamar, it would be is the guy that I had him picking. That's the route I would go if I was sitting in that spot. Um, and I think that's taking on one of the what you just kind of mentioned, the best player mentality available. I think that he's one of the best guys in the class, period. Um, just from an evaluating standpoint, he can do everything that you ask him to. Now, Warren would make a lot of sense there too. And the reason for that is because, usually when we talk about a player and his versatility, it's because he's not very good at his initial position. So um think back, I think in the 2019 draft when Clemson had this Isaiah Simmons guy that could play any position across the defense coming out. Well, we talked about that versatility because he couldn't really play any of those positions very well. So that's the difference with, Tyler Warren is he's a great tight end. He's probably the best tight end, pure tight end prospect in this class. He's got the size, he's got the athletic ability, he's a run blocker, he's a very good receiver. But then he also adds this versatility to his game where he can play the H back, play the fullback, the wildcat quarterback, line up out of the slot, maybe even out wide if you needed to. Penn State would put him at running back at times too. So you've got a guy that you can just kind of mismatch and plug into the offense in a lot of different ways. Um, and he can still do all the tight end stuff at a very high level. So I think that's the difference between, Warren to any of these tight ends in this class is that 2, 3 years from now, he's going to be an incredible mismatch weapon wherever he goes. So that's the route that I would lean. Um, I either go Shamar Stewart or I would go Tyler Warren, and either way, you're getting a guy that's versatile that you can throw into a lot of different places, either on offense or defense, and he fills a lot of holes. And that would be the approach that I would look at it. Whereas if I took a Genty's a running back, and he's a very good running back. There's no doubt about that. But he is a running back, and he's not going to plug these holes like a Shamar Stewart, like a Tyler Warren will. Um, so that would be the route that I would go, is who's going to plug the most holes.
John, can I ask you about? I want to ask you about Warren and these other tight ends, because we've heard, because some of the I'm pretty specific about tight end. Like I think the Jets need a wide tight end, and there are some other folks that are great pass catchers, some other guys that are hybrids, like big slot. Like, what's your assessment of Warren? Is he a true Y tight end, or would you
Yeah,
say, yeah, so that you
yeah,
can line him
yeah,
up in
but
line, help block? But skill set
absolutely.
wise, what about other guys? How do they compare? Like, are there guys that are just as good as him as a true Y that the Jets could consider instead of Warren at 7?
I think Loveland out of Michigan is definitely a guy that's probably a Y. He's probably a straight Y though. Um, he's also a little bit on the smaller side, which is why some people had him projected as sort of like that big slot. I think I got him. I'm by smaller. I don't mean shorter. I mean slimmer. He didn't hit 250 at the combine. He came in at 248, which is close, but it's a little bit on the smaller side. Warren's a true 260. So um, Loveland also had good production at Michigan, even with the terrible quarterback play this last year. Still managed to put up 56 catches and 582 yards. He only played 10 games.
John, that was the worst
Um,
quarterback play I've ever seen.
oh, it was awful. It was pitiful to watch. But that's what your Loveland is, probably more of a true Y as well. And I think that Warren's got him beat because he's got the better frame. He can do more. And then after that, you're probably looking at Gunnar Helm out of Texas. Um, he's probably your true. Again, he's a little bit more versatile too. He's not as versatile as Warren, but he's right there in that second, third round range. Uh, really tore up his ankle right before his 40-yard dash at the combine, and still ran a 4.8 something. I think he trimmed it down at his pro day. I hadn't seen the official number on that, but I heard it was in the 4.6. Um, so you're talking about a really good receiving tight end at Gunnar Helm that can take a move. Um, but also does some of the inline stuff as well. That's probably your true Ys in this class. You start getting into other guys like, I know Terrence Ferguson's getting a lot of attention out of Oregon right now. He's probably an underneath receiver guy. Him, Mason Taylor out of LSU, Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. Those guys are sort of your Michael Mayer type players, where they can do the Y stuff, but they're probably better suited as a tight end too. Um, Helm and Warren and Loveland are probably your number one tight end types. Jake Brenningstool could probably develop into that out of Clemson. But that's probably what you're looking at it overall as a class.
John, before we go on, could you see a scenario where, I mean, the Giants take Buckeye? You can jump in after this. The Giants somehow Shador's gone and take Jackson Dart at 3. Could you see that? And then Membu still
No,
go? Okay. I'm
no,
just, but John,
I don't. I don't see that at all.
okay, there's always a wrench in the draft, though. Like, look at what the Raiders did with Clean Farrell, stuff like that. Do you think that'll happen where there's
No,
like a
no,
head scratcher with somebody?
I agree that there's always something like that, and I think Dart will probably be the head scratcher for a lot of people. It won't be for me, but Dart potentially going top 10 will be the head scratcher.
I just told
Um,
everybody that last week, John. I'm glad you said that. I'm looking at him going ninth to New Orleans.
a lot of people are looking at him going there. That's the spot that makes the most sense. The Raiders would be someone I'd keep an eye on as well. Um, but no, I don't think he's going to go top 3. I don't think the Giants are going to make that move, and the reason for that is because they've got DeVito. They just signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, so that tells you that, hey, that's our 3 quarterbacks. We got, an older guy, we got a mid range, a mid-age guy, Winston, and then we've got, a young dude that we're still trying to develop. Um, that doesn't scream any quarterback coming off at third overall to me. Unless it's one of those two guys, which I think they've come to terms with the fact they're not getting either one of those guys.
So if Shador falls, do you think the Giants would take him?
Yes.
And
If
then
the
what? And
Browns
then
were to pass
John,
on him, yeah.
all right, John, I'm not arguing here, but you mean to tell me then that they're going to keep Shador as the number 3 quarterback and pay or move Jameis Winston to that's making $4 million to the number 3?
Well, you got to also understand 4 million for a quarterback right now is nothing.
Yes,
Um,
yes, you're right.
even for a number 3, um, that at that point, that's when you bring all 4 into camp and probably let DeVito go. But they like Shador through the entire process. I think what they did when they signed those quarterbacks is that's their plan because they're assuming that they don't get either one of them. Because it looks like Ward's coming off at 1 to the Titans, and then you've got Shador coming off at 2 to the Browns. And so if that happens, you want to have your quarterback situation answered to some extent, at least with the best of your they've patched it as well as they can. That would be what you try to do there. And then but if Shador's sitting there at 3, um that answers a long-term question that you're pushing off for a year right now.
Fair enough.
So I think that's the reason that they go that route. They've liked him the entire process. They've spent a lot of time in Colorado throughout the entire year. Some of those guys were there once a week at practice. I know that they really like him a lot. Um, and I think that if they got an opportunity to get their hands on him, they would absolutely take him.
Buckeye, go ahead. Thanks, John.
Hey, John. Simmons and Johnson, how did the injuries affect your grades? And are teams going to regret not taking them due to the injuries?
Are we talking Josh Simmons?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Will Johnson.
So their injuries haven't affected my grade personally. And the reason for that is because unless I get some word of a very, very bad medical grade, I don't want to. I don't want to pin a guy for it. And I would give a great example. Shuck is a guy this year that I pinned for injuries because I mean he had 4 major injuries over 6 years, and my that grade's going to end up being way off because I heard him. I assumed he was going to have bad injury grades, and I went ahead and dinged him for it. And now it looks like, well, he may actually have gotten a clean bill of health at the combine, and he's going to go a lot higher. So I try not to ding those guys too much, but I will with Johnson. I know most people feel that Travis Hunter is the number 1 corner in the class, anyways. So that would bump him down to 2. That probably puts him into 15 to 25 range. With Simmons, the injury, it doesn't concern me as much as does he want to play football? Um, that's the question that's sort of floating around with him at this point. There's a lot of stuff that kind of came up in his background stuff. Um, Not necessarily off-field legal problems, but just is he gonna be focused? Does he want to play? Does he want to be here? That kind of thing. Um, and that's kind of one of those things that it will ding him a little bit, maybe push him to back into the first round.
Buckeye, you good? All right.
Yep.
John,
Thank you,
so
John.
let me ask you, who is your complete sleeper of this draft? And we'll talk again before the draft, and I'm sure after the draft. And John, man, can't thank you enough for all you've contributed here to this space. For the last year and change, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, of course. Deep sleeper. Ooh, my best one. That's a really good question. I'm gonna throw somebody out here. I don't know where consensus has him right now. Um, they hadn't been very high on him for a long time. I'll go Quincy Riley, corner out of Louisville. Get him in that third round range. Um, and you're probably gonna end up with a starting corner. He's so much fun to watch on tape. He's got the right mentality and mindset. Um, played both on the boundary and plays the nickel. Could even probably play safety if you needed him to. Probably starts as a nickel guy and ends up moving to the boundary as he continues to adjust. That dude, he could play ball. He's a lot of fun.
Fair enough. Uh, so John, who do you have? Like who do? You, all right, like for instance, if the Jets don't go Warren, what tight end would you see them looking at after Warren that you would feel comfortable with them taking? Because they definitely need a tight end now that Conklin's for sure signed with the Chargers, and they can't go with Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart. You know, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I think you're right about that. Lucky for them, it's a great tight end class. Really, any of those top 6, 7 guys, I'd be okay with just because they can play. They could be your tight end one, they can be your two. Um, I might wait even if I didn't take Warren and wait till the fourth or fifth round and try to get Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. He's he's a fun guy to watch, and I think there was a game last year. Is it not the 24, the 23 season that he played? And I wasn't tracking him until that game, watching it live, and he put on one of the most complete performances I've ever seen from a prospect in one game. He just showed everything that he had. Then he got hurt a couple games later. Um, but he's got that really good underneath ability. He can stretch the seams a little bit. He's a good blocker. Um, and I think he probably ends up going fourth or fifth round. I might even wait for him there.
John, I'm going to throw you a little curveball here. Does it concern you with all the changes that the Eagles have made?
Mm-mm. No, it doesn't, and here's why. Um, if you look at the draft, the way they've drafted the last 6, 7 years, they're they're constantly preparing for upheaval. And what I mean by that is, you know, we'll use I think it was the 2021 draft. They took Cam Jurgens in the second round, and then they came in the third round. They took Milton Williams. And both of those picks were pretty criticized by the media, mostly because with Jurgens, people understood, oh, you're about to replace Kelsey. Kelsey's got a couple of years left in him. That might be a little early to be taking that. And then with Milton, it was like, well, there are better options on the board. Why did they take him? And well, Kelsey had handpicked Jurgens. That's why they took him. He said, yeah, this is the guy that I can teach everything to, who can replace me in the future. And we saw that happen this year. And Milton Williams was Fletcher Cox's pick to replace him. And that's exactly what happened. And now Milton's, with I think the New England Patriots is where he ended up signing. Huge mega deal over there. Um, so what that tells you is if you look at their draft and the way that they address their needs, they're not addressing needs for this next year. They're addressing needs 2, 3 years down the road and letting those guys marinate in their system with those veterans and become develop into starters. So it doesn't concern me because the positions that they moved on from, they plugged. They've had them plugged. They've had those guys ready to go in the wings and even step up as to injuries this past year. And I guarantee you'll see in this draft they're going to start drafting those guys replacements. So I think that it's the upheaval that happened is manageable, especially with the way that they drafted.
Yeah, Howie Roseman is king at that, man. And they have a ton of dead money too, John. And they just seem to, they just draft these guys and hit value like big time, man. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, and
Howie
then
Roseman, he's really good, man.
what makes Roseman so special compared to other GMs in the league is the fact that he uses every voice in the building to his advantage. You look at a lot of these guys, Zach Bond, for example. You sign him for what, $8 million last year, and he becomes an All Pro player because decide to move him from outside linebacker inside to basically Mike. Whose idea was that? That was Vic Fangio's. Mekhi Becton, you get him from you guys up there in New York. Total bust at left and tackle. You plug him into right guard because whose idea was that? That was head coach. Why can't I think of his name? Why am I blanking on
Sirianno.
his name?
Sirianni.
Sirianni. There you go.
Sirianni.
That's
I said
Sirianni's idea.
Sirianno. My bad.
So we already mentioned the stuff about the players handpicking dudes to replace them as they got into the back end of their career. He uses every voice in the building, and that's what makes him so different compared to any other general manager in the league.
I have one, Pete, for John. Running backs. So Brees Hall is a subject to controversy in our conversations, and you've got a class that folks are telling us, a running back class, where there's some talent. The Jets are in a position where they took 2 running backs last year, and they had Brees Hall, and he's had some suspect play around him, and Brees is coming off a down year. What would you do with Brees Hall? What do you think they're going to do? Is it possible to trade him, even given that it's a nice running back class?
Yeah,
Is there a
you can
market for
always
him?
trade a running back, Mark. You just might not get what you want for him.
Right.
Um,
So is it worth it?
no, it's not worth it.
Thank you.
So
That's what I
John,
think. Go ahead.
let me piggyback on that. So to me, like, don't you think Justin Fields, not saying Fields is going to elevate, wide receivers, let's just say, don't you think he can elevate Brees Hall's game because of the RPO that's going to be in the Jets' advantage going forward this year, hopefully?
Yes and no. I don't think Brees Hall's a great RPO running back. Because that's a huge part of getting an RPO is you have to have the right fit for it. Hall is more of a I formation gap scheme running back. You give him the gap to run through, you block it for him, he's going to get it there, and he's got great athletic ability once he gets there.
That's why he's on the 34 team. You hear that, Petey and Mark?
John, I didn't hear that. Continue, please.
To have more of a RPO off running back, you want to have more of a zone guy, a guy that's going to read things and not necessarily have a specific gap he's supposed to run through. And I think that's one of the reasons you've seen him struggle in New York is because they really wanted him to run a zone scheme. That's not really his game. So I think what I would do is I would try to be very creative designing an offense around Fields because he's been in a lot of different offenses. And so I think my first gig as an offensive coordinator, my first mission would essentially be to sit down with him and figure out what he likes to run, what does he like to do, um, and then start building on that from, okay, well, how about this? What if we did this out of the I formation? Boom, there's a package for Brees this year. Now, I don't think I'm planning on keeping Brees beyond this year. I think I'm going to probably let him go. And so I understand you drafted 2 running backs last year, and I understand why you phrased the question that way. But I would go ahead and take one, maybe 5th, 6th round, because the 5th, 6th round guy this year is potentially a 3rd, 4th round next year. That's how deep the class is and how far those running backs are going to get stretched down the board. So I might not have to play that guy this year, but I can play him the next 3 years after that. So that's how I would try to approach that.
John, let me ask you a quick question. I'm just gonna play the scenario. If a Quinshawn Jenkins or DJ Giddens is right there, guys that for the most part, guys for the most part that mostly are kind of zone running backs, kind of guys that can kind of run through skinny through tight gaps, and guys that are kind of just solid after contact in those sort of situations. Do you take that for more, if you revolve around Justin Fields on an RPO based system?
Well, where are you talking about taking them?
So my scenario is if they do decide to trade away Brees Hall, and I don't think you're going to get like a second or third round pick. You're probably going to get like a fourth or a fifth, and
You're probably going to get a 6th
maybe
in
even
this class.
maybe even a sixth for a round pick for him. if you so let's say DJ Giddens is probably the most likely the guy because I don't think the Jets would probably take a running back in the third. So Quinshawn, but just in case if Quinshawn Jacobs is taken like in the second, third, or Giddens is taken like in the fourth or fifth, do you feel like those guys would be perfect complements to an RPO based system with Justin Fields?
Well, I think Judkins is a little bit more of a gap runner, and that's just
Okay.
the way that he's built. He needs to get downhill. Once he gets downhill, he's pretty good. I think Trayvon Henderson's probably more of your zone guy, the other Ohio State running back. Um, Bashal Tootin would be a guy that I'd be taking a really hard look at out of Virginia Tech. That guy can absolutely fly. Had some fumble issues.
Yeah.
Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee would be a guy.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's more your fit. Now the thing is, a lot of people look at like a Dylan Sampson and they're like, he's too small to run between the tackles. And you put on the tape and you realize that he's running 5, 6 times in a row, very quick tempo, 10 seconds between snaps, and still has the contact balance. 5, 6 plays later, um, he's going to be a lot of fun on that side. I think LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse, that'd be a guy that I would look at too. A little bit more of your power slasher, but he can zone a little bit. That's it's very difficult usually to figure out who exactly is a zone and who's a gap running back. I think what happens is because sometimes it's a little bit harder to see what the scheme is too, unless you got the coach's tape and that's what you're watching. Um, I think that vision is something that is very hard to evaluate on film. Um, you have to really find the team that's running the scheme and then see how well they run the play. And that isn't something that you'll necessarily pick up the very first time you flip on a tape and you watch a running back. It takes time to kind of figure out. But those would be the guys that if I was going to go any earlier than fifth round, I might really consider would be like a Samson or a Tootin, um, or a LaQuint Allen.
Vince, go ahead.
Vince.
Hey, good morning, guys. John,
What's
I
up,
think a
Vince?
position that Jets fans have overlooked for quite some time until we blow a major coverage is a safety position. We haven't had I know the Jamal Adams experience didn't turn out well.
Yeah.
I don't assume we're gonna Malachi Starks is an option at 7, but do you think in the second round that either Aminari from South Carolina or Xavier Watts can be a day one starter?
Yeah, I think Watts can. Manwari is probably not going to be there in the second round. I think he's going to end up going first, especially not just because he's tested really well, but because he's got the frame and he's got some good tape. I think that he's probably going to go first round. But yeah, I think Watts could. I think Andrew Makuba could out of Texas. There are some options once you get into the second round. There's guys that could play right away. Jalen Reed out of Penn State might even be able to, and you might be able to get him in the third or fourth round.
So I got one more for you. So I am pro Terracotta McMillan at 7, just because I think that the Jets have neglected the wide receiver position for years outside of Garrett Wilson, and we've let every young quarterback go to absolute hell with wide receiver options. Do you think that he is a top 7 pick, or do you feel that you only really should get him if he's mid first? And if so, does Mbeku or Golden or anybody else fall to the second round that you feel that they can really scoop up and be a complementary piece, not just this year, but if we draft a young quarterback next year, that could be a really good fit?
I think he's one of the top 10 players in this class. I don't have a lot of pure first round grades in this class. He's one of them. And it's because you've got a big guy who is physical. He's got strong hands, and even for his size, he's nuanced as a route runner. Um, you don't normally see 6'5" guys run routes that he can. And he reminds me a lot of Mike Evans, where he's going to win in a lot of the same ways that Evans does, through physicality and then through those breaks, timing them just right with the quarterback. That's going to be a little bit harder to accomplish with Fields because we haven't necessarily seen Fields consistently get the ball out on time to the right point. He's flashed it, but he's not consistent. You would hope that would, if you're going to take him at 7, that he would be the guy that would help get that, unlock that, and make that consistent. So, yeah, I think he's a first round guy. Probably a top. I would say probably a top 10 type guy. Especially in this class. And then I think that he'd be a great complement with Garrett Wilson because he's a total different type of receiver than Wilson is. And that if you scheme them both the right way, then you're going to really unlock them. McMillan hopefully takes a lot of the attention away from Wilson, and then Wilson can actually get some one-on-one opportunities where he can sort of dominate with his the route running ability.
I love it.
John, you don't think the Jets are going to go McMillan 7, though, do you?
I would be more surprised if they did. I know they've spent a lot of time at Arizona, and I think in the guide I just updated this, the Jets, where they've been all their pro days. So I know that they went to T-Max workout. I think there were 24 teams that were there. Now, there's a bunch of Big 12 prospects that are doing their own individual workouts. Didn't go to the Big 12 Pro Day, and he's one of them. But I know the Jets were there. Uh, they've spent a ton of time in Arizona, so I think it's probably on the table. But with the direction that they're kind of going with the staff, with what they kind of did in free agency, um, you know, bringing in not necessarily bringing in anybody great, but Ontario Wilson, um, it is a possibility. It's just not one that I'm leaning toward buying just yet.
Now, John, real quick, as far as all the wide receivers that's out there that's available in the first round, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, it's my opinion. I think that T Mac would be the perfect complement for Gary because he has what Garrett doesn't have, such as red zone threat, deep threat. Why not? And the big body with a catch radius.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would be the best fit because there's not a big guy that's built like him that's ready to play as well as he is. When you start getting into that group, okay, who's 6'4" and 6'5", runs good routes, can play right now, you kind of end up with, well, there's him and there's Jaden Higgins, but Higgins doesn't look like he's necessarily ready to play. He might be a year away. So yeah, that would make the most sense. Now that also comes back to, well, do they want a true 1 and then have Garrett as a true 2 and then figure out their slot? Or are they going to try to come out with this, you know, everybody's the same type of receiver and we're just going to line them all up all over the place and, make you defend us that way? Um, it doesn't look like they're going that route, but that could be the way that they end up going. And if they need a 1 receiver, it's just I don't think they're going to do it personally, not from what I'm hearing.
John, a follow up with T-Mac question for you. I know when he has 8 catches for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns, it's hard to talk about his red zone ability. But one thing also I think the Jets have lacked for a while is that since Brandon Marshall probably was a big target in the red zone that can help out a quarterback, how does he look? I don't know if there's even much tape on it, but because of the way Arizona ran their offense, but is he a good red zone threat? A big body that can hit a jump ball in the end zone, or is he more of a route runner, explosive runner?
Oh, he's definitely more of a big body. Um, Now with the red zone stuff, Yeah, it was a weird offense. They had a 5'10", 5'9" quarterback that had played with him, as in T-Mac, all the way through high school. They had played together. So it was kind of a weird offense, but no, I'm telling you, I think he's got that Mike Evans type ability to him. And I'm not saying that he's going to go be as productive as Evans has been to start his career, but that's the type of player that you're getting if you take T-Mac. And I've been holding on to that for the last year. That's just all I see when I watch him. So yeah, I think he can absolutely be that weapon in the red zone. I think that he's a little bit more than that. He's not necessarily what you would call a route runner. He's a good route runner for his size. Um, but he's going to win with physicality and through his timing.
Pete, are you here?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. I thought, John, quick couple more before we let you go here. And again, tremendous stuff. You want to plug what you do, man? Like you got some stuff, you got a thing you post, that you can purchase and everything. You want to do that real quick, if you don't mind, or it's up to you.
Well, yeah, it's the 25 guide. I think the 26 is pinned right now. If you get the 26 guide now, you get 50% off the 25. Why is the 26 guide available this early, you might ask? Because there's a lot of agents and there's personnel people that use my guide. And so it's making that available to them because they're all agents already scouting for 26. They're done recruiting for 25. Now it's just getting the next group of guys lined up. Personnel people are already ahead to 26 as well. So you can get what the pros get essentially. It's pinned on my profile. Um, it's one of the most complete things you'll ever see in your life, I think. Team breakdowns for all 32 NFL teams. Um, you kind of get to see the big boards and how they're built. You can see the trackers of where the teams have been, going to schools and going on visits, and go where the pro days that they've been at. And then there's 1,500 prospects in this year's guide. And as of now, we just passed, I think, the 2,500 mark in the 26 guide. So a lot of prospect profiles to dig into as well.
Awesome, man. Thanks. And we can find you on YouTube too, right, John?
Yeah, I haven't used YouTube for a long time.
Okay.
So draftvogel.com is probably the best place if you're not an ex-user.
Cool. John, so what if we had to do it right now, can you predict the top 7 in draft with what you think it's going to go? I know it's early. I'm putting you on the spot here, but give me your draft order 1 through 7 as you think it would go right now.
I think you're going to go Titans will stick at 1. Cam Ward comes off the board. I think Cleveland goes ahead and takes Shador 2. The Giants go ahead and take Parsons at 3. Or Parsons, Carter. They're practically the same player. I think at 4, I really think the Patriots go Membu there. Um, a lot has been kind of leaning that way with some of the information I've been getting. And plus, they've made a lot of changes to their offensive line, and the one position that they really haven't addressed has been left tackle. I think that's probably the route that they'll go. At 5, I think you're going to see the Jaguars will take Travis Hunter at that point if he's sitting there at 5. At 6, you got the Raiders. There's a lot of different ways that the Raiders could go, and their group is not very clear. It's clear they're still looking for a quarterback. They brought Ward in on a 30 visit. He won't be there. I think they are trying to bring Sanders on a 30 visit, and I don't know if he wouldn't come or what was going on there. Ewers out of Texas just came there. A dark horse, I think, for there would be Will Campbell. He might come off the board right there. He came in on a 30 visit. There seems to be a lot of interest. But if I had to pick today, I'd say that they might go. Oh, They might go Campbell at 6. This I
Wow.
don't feel good about that at all, though. I don't feel good about I don't have any good intel on what the Raiders. I have a lot of intel on what the Raiders are looking at. I don't have any intel on what they're doing. Um, and then at 7, I would go Stewart, Shamar Stewart, but I would understand going a Tyler Warren.
And that leaves Janty on the board still at 7 and past 7. So much for a running back being taken in the top 7.
Oh, I don't think you're going to see a running back go that high. I really don't.
John, if you could listen to the tone of Mark, that was sarcasm towards the fans. I
Hey,
don't want
John, it
to. I don't
wasn't
want to.
meant towards you. It was meant
John,
towards
I don't
us.
want to drag you in. We have Mark, I, and June are on opposite sides a lot, but that's a little dig Mark's throwing, but it's all good. It's all in fun. But to that point, go ahead,
So
Medic. Vince, let Medic get in and then come back, Vince, if you don't mind, please. Thanks. Go ahead, Medic.
So I'm not a big advocate of taking tackles out of college and swapping their positions. We've tried it, didn't really work as well for us. Do you think they would take Membu over Campbell, knowing they need a left tackle and trying to convert Membu to a left tackle?
Yeah, Membu is projected to play as a left tackle. I understand he played a lot of right, but he's got the tool set to play on the left. The thing is, here's how the real factor into whether you can make the switch or not is how much does the guy love football? That's really what it is, because it's not necessarily hard to make that switch. To flip sides like that, it just takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot getting used to. Um, and because you're mirroring your technique. So for some guys, yeah, that's really hard. They don't want to put the work in to do it. For guys that love football, that want to be starters and want to play in the league, that's a no brainer. Membu has done real well in the character stuff.
Vince, go ahead.
John, so let me ask you this. I think that was interesting. So if Genty is still there at 7, right? Do you now? I don't feel like, and you correct me if I'm wrong. There's no quarterback that people might run and trade up to. But if Genty's still there at 7, I think about this like Zeke back. He when he got drafted, one of the reasons why he was so good, as you know, is because that offensive line in Dallas was incredible. Saquon Barkley's incredible, but the difference between him and Philly and New York is that he never gets touched till the 4th or 5th line past the line of scrimmage. So if you have a team sitting there in the middle of the pack, or maybe even later, that hasn't established a offensive line, somebody like Dallas that needs a running back, or Arizona that doesn't have a true running back, is Genty a guy that you think somebody could trade up to that would really give up assets for? And if he is there at 7, do you think there's a reasonable situation where somebody could trade with the Jets, they move back, and still get quality starter late on in the draft?
Well, no, I don't think anybody moves up for Genty. And again, that just comes down to the fact that there's 40 draftable running backs in this class, and there ain't going to be 40 of them that get drafted. Um, I think what you're looking at with the quarterback position is, yeah, there is a possibility somebody could move up for one. Um, I think there's 2 teams right now that really don't have their quarterback situation addressed very well, and that's the New Orleans Saints and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Um, Pittsburgh sitting there at 21 doesn't have a lot of ammo to move up, but they could potentially be looking to move up because who's New Orleans going to take at 9? And if they like, let's say, Jackson Dart, they can move up to 7 or 8 in theory and jump the Saints and make that pick and do it last minute. But I don't think anybody moves up for a Genty. I think that he's a very good running back prospect, but it's a very deep class, and you could still get good quality talent without having to surrender, picks or capital uh, at that position just fine throughout the entire draft.
So, John, what you're saying is you think that there's a couple of guys that may not get drafted that could plug in and be signed as unsigns down the road this year.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I'm telling you, this running back class is incredibly deep. Essentially, I think what you've had, if you want to get into a technical explanation of it, is the last couple years we've seen a noticeable decline in juniors declaring for the draft. Partly due to NIL, partly due to the running back position usually takes up a very large portion of the underclassmen declarations, and a lot of those guys have been going back to school. Money's not great there in the league for them, nor is so you're almost better suited to go back to NIL. So I think what you've seen is the accumulation of a couple years of these running backs going back to school, and now they're all coming back in the same. They're all coming in the same class, and we've got a good group of underclassmen as well, third year juniors, and that's what's kind of built this very deep class at the position. But yeah, there'll be a few guys that they'll be undrafted. They'll end up in the right situation, and you'll be playing with them on your daily fantasy leagues at some point this year. Absolutely.
I don't see Gentry getting past. Well, if he does get past the Raiders, I don't see him getting past the Cowboys. I don't see him getting past that.
Yeah, that'd be the max that I think. I think that there's a really good chance he gets to Dallas too, in my opinion.
Anybody got anything else before we get John
John,
out of here?
the only thing I would say is that I think we have a couple. I think one in particular, Aaron Rodgers truthers in here. So I think the Steelers quarterback will be solidified pretty well if he goes there.
Maybe. See, how do I say this the nice way? Um,
Don't be nice, John. Don't be nice.
There's one in particular, John, that we're talking to.
Aaron
Can,
Rodgers.
can
Exactly.
Aaron Rodgers loves uh Aaron Rodgers. So man, I hope that would work. Pittsburgh's just put themselves in an impossible situation. Um, Adding uh Aaron Rodgers might, put a band-aid on this year, a lot like they did last year, but there's no future. The Steelers at some point are definitely going to take a quarterback this class. Um, they have no other option at this point, whether that's trading up for a Jackson Dart, whether that's sitting there at 21 and maybe if Dart gets that far. I don't think Dart gets down there. Taking a Tyler Shuck there, or moving back up into the second round and taking somebody after, giving up your second round pick for DK Metcalf. I think that was a horrendous decision on their part.
So do I.
John, real quick, do you think DK Metcalf deserved? I'm not trying to count players' money, but
Oh, here we
I don't
go.
think he's a $30 million a year guy. I don't. But go
Oh,
ahead,
okay,
John.
okay.
This is going towards
A
Garrett,
better
by the way.
question. A better question, John. Is DK Metcalf better than Garrett? Well, that's where it's all trending because we've been having this debate for the
I
past
wasn't
Well,
2 years.
going to go that route,
you
but
also
go
have to
ahead.
see where the wide receiver market's going. Okay. The wide receiver market just hit $41 million with Jamar Chase. So if your top guy's getting paid 41, that means that your average top 10 is going to be in the 33-34 range. I think that DK in that case that's probably a fair deal, fair market deal at 30 a year. He's just not in the right fit right now. He's not going to play like a $30 million receiver because they're going to ask him basically to run go routes the entire time. Unless Pittsburgh and what's his face, their offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, can come together and actually add a spark of creativity to their offense. That's about what he's going to be doing. And you got George Pickens on the other side that doesn't do anything to complement him. In the right setup, in the right system, yeah, he'd be a $30 million receiver easy, because that's where the market's going. Garrett Wilson, much as you probably don't want to hear it, Petey, is going to be a $30 million receiver because that's where the market's going. Whether the Jets
Well,
pay
yeah,
him
I
or
don't,
whether
John.
somebody else pays him.
Well, John, I don't mind that. I think the Jets should pay him. Like the June is it's the, no offense, it's the other way around. June doesn't, think the Jets. Well, he's going to say that, he doesn't want to be here, and which whatever it is, what it is. But I think the Jets should pay him in the 30s.
Now,
I do long term.
now, John, my reasoning for saying that is, out of all the wide receivers who are making $30 million, we can say most of them are deep threats. They do the things that Garrett can't do. So that's why I'm saying, like, why would you pay $30 million for a guy who's not a red zone threat, not a not a end zone threat, and definitely not a deep threat. So why would you pay that?
Jen, you
Because
sound like. Sorry, go
Wait,
ahead,
wait,
John.
wait, wait, wait. Let
because
John finish.
you're
Let
paying for, when you do a 4-year deal, you're paying up front so that deal in 2 years is a really, really, really good deal. So that comes into projection with where's the market moving. So that's my whole point in pointing out that Jamar Chase just made $41 million this year. That's where the market's moving. So that means the next group of guys that are going to be in that top 10, top 15, top 20 player market are going to be pushing $40 million, which means next year they're going to be pushing 45. Assuming the salary continues to go up at the rate that it's going, in 2 years they'll be pushing 45, 46, 47, maybe even your $50 million receiver. Okay, so that means 2-3 years from now, giving Garrett Wilson 30 for that type of player who very high at wide receiver 2, that's a really good deal. And that's what you're paying
and
for.
wide receiver.
Wide receiver
The
two.
key. Wide receiver two. Say it again, Jarek. Say it again, John, please. Wide receiver two. Now, wait. My next question, which was the very important one, is, like I said, we didn't have this debate for the past week. Is DK Metcalf, in your eyes, better than Garrett Wilson?
They're totally, totally different receivers. I would say from a contract standpoint, because I feel like that's why you're asking me this question, Garrett Wilson would be a better receiver. And here's why. Because how much longer does DK really have in the tank? He's a big physical receiver. He's taken a lot of hits. He's not as fast as he used to be. Um, is that a long-term investment that's worth taking? Whereas Garrett, he's still a young guy. He's probably a 3 contract player, still on his first contract. As long as you've got someone to complement him and let him really cook, he's going to be very productive. So
Hmm.
right now, from a contract standpoint, Wilson would be the better option, be the better one to game plan long term with.
John, real quick, I'm going to end the space. I'm closing it so nobody can rebut. Have a great day, guys. I'm
No,
only
no,
kidding, John.
don't you dare do that,
John,
G.
John, yeah, I'm only kidding. John, thank you for that share on that. That was very good. Thank you. I don't hear any rebuttal by June,
I
by
ain't
the
got no
way.
rebuttal, man. I could never,
All right,
I could
let's
never
Of
get
go
to
course he
against
doesn't.
John. Hit
Of course
Geo
he
up, man.
doesn't. Of course he
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah.
No,
Wait,
it's
Jones,
hey,
one
look,
sec.
look. It's just it's there's no rebuttal because honorary 34th member teams, we all kind of were on the same
Wow,
page with each other.
Thank you.
It's
That's
that's
Thank
what
you.
right.
it is.
Thank you.
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what we
All
do.
right, let's go to June's arch nemesis, Geo.
That's my.
Good morning, fellas. Is
What
John
up,
still here, by
G?
the way? How you doing? Is John still had a quick question for me, real quick.
Yeah, you're good.
I wanted your thoughts about do you think Sauce deserves the contract he's gonna get? This because June doesn't think he deserves it. Also wants to trade the guy. I just wanted to like hear your thoughts about Sauce. Like,
I agree with June on that one. I would trade him. Um,
don't do
Woo!
that.
but
Listen
here's
loud and
why.
clear.
Here's why. Because Sauce is really not a man coverage guy.
Oh
He's not.
my goodness.
Thank you. Oh wait, see the 34 team been saying this. I'm so
Hold
John.
on.
Go ahead, John.
Can John, I'm not being rude here. Can I hear John finish? Go ahead, John.
Look, he's not a man coverage guy. He's a zone guy. He can play a little bit of match, but he's really strictly a zone guy. And we've seen great corners the last few years that are really good zone guys. Richard Sherman, most notably. But what did Sherman have that Sauce is missing?
Interceptions.
John,
Well,
would you
I
flip
wouldn't
him for
even say
Johnson?
interceptions. I would say
Tackle,
physicality,
tackles.
desire to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to get his hands dirty, and that's one of my biggest personal pet peeves at the corner position is you got a guy that doesn't want to tackle anybody. Well, you're playing defense. That's half your job.
John,
So
Thank you.
yeah, I wouldn't give him a big deal. I'd move him personally, but we'll see what scheme that they decide to come out here and run. He's been a
I
good
just got
fit
a
for their
quick
scheme the last
rebuttal.
couple years.
I just got a quick rebuttal for John real quick. To the people that says he can't cover though. Those first 2 years, if you look at Sauce stats, he was ranked #1 in man to man. So where is this narrative coming from that he
it's
can't
because he
cover?
was holding Geo. That's why he can't hold
No,
That
no,
nobody.
no,
that's
no, no,
Corner
no,
that's
holds
no.
why.
So,
but
so,
every
so
corner
here,
holds though.
here's
Every
the
Not
issue.
corner
like
does.
him, boy. He was
Where,
holding people like Mother Teresa.
where are you pulling this from? Where are
His
you
first
pulling
two
this stat
years, his
from?
stats, his PFF stats.
See that PFF? There it is, right there. PFF. Look, they do some really good stuff with snap counts, figuring out where people line up on the field. But they have been notoriously bad at diagnosing what the play is that they're running on the field. Plus, they've also been notorious for taking money from agents to inflate certain players' performances through their metrics. And the reason for this is because about 10 years ago, offensive linemen, for example, had no real metrics or stats to go off of, and that were from a neutral place that were undisputable. Whereas like a coach's grade that could be disputed because you could say, well, the coach doesn't like me, blah blah blah. So people started using PFF as contract negotiating sections for bonuses. You know how like running backs get bonuses for hitting certain yardage or touchdowns, or quarterbacks, receivers, tackles for defense, sacks for defenders, interceptions, so on and so forth. There's no real metric for offensive linemen, so that's how they were going to do it, was PF grades, until they found out that the agencies were paying PFF to inflate their metrics a little bit and twist them so that their client would get that bonus. So PFF is notorious for a couple of those things. The reason that they miss on a lot of the assignments on what is actually being run is because a lot of interns typically do the grading through the film, and a lot of times they don't really know what they're looking at. Um, I would never use PFF grades in an argument or in a debate for that reason, because no one in the league uses their grades. Uh, no one really in college uses their grades either. Their grades are pretty much for fans that don't quite understand what's going on there.
Wow. John, quick follow up. So, are there any positions where you feel like a PFF grade can be trusted, or would you just throw it all out for the reasons you gave?
No, nope. I would
There you
never.
go.
I would never trust a PFF. I don't care who does it. That's the other thing too. Is what is the grade? How are you coming up with that metric? And that stuff is super secret. Because if they gave it up, that'd be their business model. So we have no
Actually, I
idea how their grade is how they take all the stuff that they collect and factor it into that grade. There's no way to see it.
actually I almost worked with them one time. What they do is they'll send you the film. They give you like a guideline what they want you to follow, but they'll have multiple people, and then from there they assess data and put whatever grades.
Mark, I'm going to be funny here. Was that enough context for
It,
PFF from John?
that's excellent. I'm
I
curious
love it.
then, yeah, because that well leads me to a conversation around. Okay, well, if we're not going to use that, like if that can't be trusted, then when it comes to evaluating a player like, I don't know, Sauce, let's say, do we look at, or let's say Garrett, let's pick Garrett. Like, do we look at his ability to beat man coverage, or like his success rates in man, success rates in zone coverage? Like, what's the better way to kind of? I understand it's position by position, but I'm just curious from someone
Okay,
who's got
so
to
yeah, yeah,
grade this
yeah.
and give grades to other folks that are paying for. I'm curious the mentality around it. Thank you, John.
So let's take Sauce. Let's start there. How do you know that he can't play man coverage? Because he's not a reactive athlete. What that means is when that corner, take Tyreek Hill. Everybody saw that video of Tyreek Hill last year getting toasted by a high schooler at his camp while Hill's playing coverage. That's because Tyreek's not a reactive athlete. And so you can see what someone's reaction time is through a break. So if he's playing off five, they run a quick out or quick in, excuse me. You can see how quickly he reacts to the cut. Sauce doesn't really react very well to cuts. That's why I say he's not a great man coverage guy. I've seen him on the field struggle to react to in breaking routes to stay in position, which is why they keep him pretty much strictly in zone. That's why they ran a heavy zone scheme. That's what Robert Saleh basically built his San Francisco 49ers defense on, was a heavy zone coverage presence. So let's just, for the sake of the argument, let's say that their PFF grades are accurate. Let's say that their man coverage stuff is, yeah, he was the best corner in man coverage. Well, that's because how many snaps did he play in man coverage? Was he the best in man coverage because he's just that good there, or because they run zone 90% of the time? So when they run man, it throws the opposing quarterback and offense totally out of sync, which is why they throw the man in there to begin with, because they're a heavy zone defense.
In that case, John, not to interrupt, but in that case, do you look at the threshold of snaps at
That
man and say, okay, well, look, let's not do it like, oh, well, he got 10 snaps, and in those 10, he was phenomenal. Meanwhile, some folks are playing 30, 40, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that would be one thing I would look at, is how much are they playing that? Um, that's usually a very good tell, right? I guess is a good start. Is how many snaps are they playing zone? How many snaps are they playing man? Now, I don't think PFF even gets that right half the time. That's part of the issue too. And sometimes it's hard to see whether they're playing man or zone. In the NFL, it's usually a lot clearer, but you've got disguise coverages, you've got instinctive players abandoning their assignments to go break up something and make it look like it was part of the play. Um, you really don't know unless you're in that locker room and you're in that organization what they were running, but you can typically have an idea. So it just there's a lot to it. Um, but I would look at the corner position and even at the receiver position too, reactive athletic ability versus pure athletic ability. If you're more of a pure athlete, you're going to be better on offense. If you're more of a reactive athlete, because there's some guys that, they're not going to run a 4.6 40, but Rondé Barber's a great example of this. He could stick with a guy because he was reactive as hell, you know?
And John, to your point, that answers the question: why wasn't Sauce traveling a traveling corner? That's the reason why.
Because he's his own corner. Exactly.
Yep. They just didn't want to
Exactly.
say it.
All right, see, John, if you can notice, a few people came up because June gets people to engage in Sauce Gardner's nonsense talk, but I'm just kidding. Jones, you got something for John or Hexagon before I
Yeah,
let
Oh,
John go?
oh,
I
he
know
got
Jones is
something for
burning.
me. He
John,
got something for me. He's burning.
I just got a question for John. Just to address the room. Do you think if cornerback is the hardest position, like in one of the hardest positions in all of sports, is it? Can you be a corner, a top three corner, for 3+ years in a row, like without having no faults? Like,
Well, again, that's where you
take
get into who's saying whose top three corner are we talking about?
this in context because Sauce produced like a top.
through all pro years. Then this year he took a slight step back and is still in the top 10 range.
All right, hang on. Let me pull up his stats real quick.
If he played 8 games this year and was playing at the all pro level, people would
Hey, Jones, can I say this real quick
wait,
to you?
you look at Jamie Sherwood, people are saying, well, we don't know what he is, don't pay him. Just metric of whatever the hell this fan base thinks. We will have no corner, we will have no green dot in the middle of the defense. Now, people are already wishy-washy on Brandon Stevens. Now we'll be out here with no corner one, a wishy-washy green dot in the middle, just creating more and more holes for ourselves. That I don't. We're in a place where if we pay him, I don't feel like that. We don't. It seems like people in this fan base don't give no room. Either you good or you're not, which I don't.
Hey, Jones, can I say this real quick? All right, one of the reasons, in my opinion, me watching the games, one of the reasons why he took a step back, you know the reason why? Is because Salah was fired and Olbrich played more man, and teams actually picked on Sauce. You can watch the games. This is what happened.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what comes from that first before is having pass rush. We're sitting here criticizing our DBs when we don't know what the
Did
hell.
we lose him?
No,
Oh.
we
Yeah,
don't know
he's just
what.
popping in and out.
Just just like his takes.
I get the point that he's making. He's, and you need a pass rush, otherwise you get picked on. But here's the problem: is Sauce did go down this year. It is because they started playing more man coverage. They had the rest of the defense played better to man coverage. Sauce just happened to be the guy that didn't do it as well. And then I think as for the pass rush, was the pass rush really that bad?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
it was
Can
negligent.
I jump in here, please, John? Because I want to make sure you're getting access to good information. Okay.
Oh,
Well, I
wow.
just
Yeah,
think.
Mark. Hey, John. Mark brings the context here. So go
Well,
ahead,
I
Mark.
like to listen. I like to look and see what folks are saying. The only source I've got that's saying that the Jets had more man coverage after Salah's dismissal is June Smith. There is no evidence to suggest that Ulbrich had Sauce and more man coverage. So the assassination mission goes
Wow.
on. Okay, and to answer
So
Wow.
now
John,
June
if
Smith
you
is
look
a
at the
source.
numbers, well,
Cool.
yeah, well, not a great one. But listen, in terms of explosive plays and the downfall of the Jets defense with Salah's dismissal, I've never seen a team give up more explosive plays after a head coach. Like it was wild the amount of explosives they were giving up after Salah was gone. So, but honestly, I really appreciate your insight in terms of looking at Sauce, his scheme fit, because we just heard Muji say from the podium about Stevens that they like that he's physical and they like that he can play press man. So let me ask you, do you feel like Sauce in press man is going to have a better chance
No,
as opposed to just having just being in man coverage? What's your sense of
no,
that?
no. And he doesn't like to get his hands dirty.
Yep.
So when you got a guy, he doesn't want to throw hands on people. He doesn't want to get involved like that. He wants to sit there and play trail. He's not going to play better in press man. Press man is you engage the guy, you throw him off his route, and then you trail him. You don't let him escape and go into his route and trail him the whole way. People don't do well when they do that. So no, I don't like him any better there. And that's the thing is he's a zone corner, and that's fine. If you build the right zone scheme, you're gonna have to have the right players around it. You could be really good. I mean, look at the Legion of Boom. That's really what brought that type of defense to the league, and where people started trying to copy it. Um, but again, that goes back to my point, which is Sauce isn't bringing the boom to anybody. He doesn't want to tackle people either.
I think a lot of that.
John, let me.
I think a lot of
Wait,
that was in his first year or two. That when before they started really getting onto him is when he was doing a lot of the more handsy things. But then he got kind of blown out and caught what he was doing, and now that's why he's not the player he once was. And now he's becoming
Well,
more of a role
you
player.
got you got 10 yards you can play with in college, right? Before you get a penalty. In the NFL, it's 5. So
yep.
If you're playing off 5, don't put your hands on them.
I agree with that draft, but it was literally this scheme. They didn't ask DJ Reed, Michael Carter, or Sauce to ever play press man. They always played that stupid ass bail coverage where we just let everybody run free and rally up and don't let anything behind you. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but Salah and Oberk and that coaching staff never said, look, we're gonna throw these guys off. Like, we knew this defense. These Jets fans knew this defense on third down. They were gonna start at the line of scrimmage, 2 or 3 seconds before the ball was snapped. You seen Sauce and DJ Reed bailing out. That is on coaching. That is on
Yeah,
coaching.
John,
John,
wait, Jones. That's a good.
the fanboys are
That
convulsing, John. It's the truth.
no,
Yeah.
Okay,
it's not
so
fanboys,
I want
Grant.
to make a
John, can I just ask you one sec?
hold up one
Good.
second. I want to make a point about
Yep.
this pass rush unit, okay? Because I had to find the stats. I thought it was a lot better than it was, than you guys were saying it was. So their sack percentage this past year was 7.62%. So that's what, 1 every 13 plays, you're getting a sack. That's 7th in the league.
Oh.
Jared, don't do that.
Hey, John, where are you
Please
getting
don't do
these
that.
from,
This
John?
is off
Wait a
of
minute.
Wow.
What's going on here?
Wait,
teamrankings.com.
all right, John. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Can we go back real quick? Where did you have what player? Where did you have Sauce ranked overall in his draft? Was
Oh,
it top 5?
no.
Okay.
I
Did you
don't.
have Stingley in the top 5?
Yes, Stingley
Yes.
was up
Number
there.
1.
All right. Well, I'm asking.
See, I gotta remember that year. No, I didn't like Sauce that much coming out, and he really impressed me his first year. And I was like, okay, maybe I was wrong. And then but I'm going back to the point again, which is he's a zone corner. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't prefer that personally. I like somebody
That's
who's going to
fine.
be more physical, who's going to be disruptive, can play the press man, plays man coverage. I like match corners. I think that they do the best,
Hmm.
because they can play a little bit of everything.
Hey, John, there's a funny comment in this section. Show us the bank statements from the 34 team. I don't like John agreeing with you. He
He
has to
said,
be
show us
paid
the
off.
bank statements.
Wait,
Wait,
John.
where is this?
Gio, that was a good
I
John.
need
one.
to know where this pass rush was better than we thought. Like,
Well, I'm just pointing this out. So the
John,
sack
John,
percentage, that'd be the
John,
number of offensive plays that you ran or that ran against them versus the number of sacks. And
John,
7.62% is, I didn't think their pass rush unit was that bad.
John, you know what the Jet fans do? They tell you that Quentin Williams is the best defensive tackle in the league, and he's amazing.
Don't
Yep.
do
But then
that.
when
Yep.
they defend Sauce, they say, "Oh man, we had no pass rush." And then when they defend Quentin, they say, "Oh, he has no help." And it's like, okay. Then they go with Sauce, same thing. Oh, the coaching, the coaching, the
Yep.
coaching. Oh, the same coaching staff that he had 2 All
Yep.
Pros.
Yep.
I mean, like,
Yep.
it's just,
but
Yep.
it's
you
not
know.
about coaching. It's about adjusting. Kim, show
But
me the adjustments that was made through this defense
see,
for year
you
3.
know,
What were the adjustments made? We all watch way too
well,
much
Jo-
football
the
well,
league.
to know that
I'll
was
tell you what the
zero
well, wait.
adjustments
adjustments.
were. I'll tell you what the adjustments were. The league adjusted.
That's it.
They figured out
Exactly.
that he can't
That's
man
exactly what
corner,
happened.
and they said, "Let's throw at this guy," and it worked. They either got a penalty or they got a completion.
So look, not trying to interrupt you guys, but I just finally got back and found my Sauce report. Here was
Thanks, John.
overall overall statement on him to sum up the report, which looks like he had a 3rd, 4th round grade. Ahmad Gardner can grow into a solid zone coverage cornerback, but might have to transition to safety if he makes it far enough in his career.
Damn.
Gardner is well overrated as an athlete in most NFL draft circles. I have major concerns about it.
All right, this is
Wow,
your
so you didn't
thing,
like him at
John.
all.
Well,
Holy moly.
John, respectfully, John, we will have a segment next time you come on about this,
And
and
I can't wait.
I have some strong questions about
I
this one,
can't
but
wait.
I respect that, John.
I love Jimmy. You don't
Petey, you
understand
gotta
that.
understand
John,
something. Numbers aren't
John,
everything.
Thank you.
What we see on the field is what matters.
okay,
Thank
all
you.
right.
you moved up. You moved up, and you know what Medic sounds like. Medic sounds like, you know what, man. I want to set you up on a date with this girl. She got a great personality.
Oh
Um,
gosh,
I,
You guys that are in
listen.
victory lap mode should chill
Yo,
because
we
listen,
love it.
he
We
just
love
get.
it.
I love John's accountability about it. It's also a corner who was an all pro in his first 2 years. So it's an interesting. If the Jets had taken him at third or further on, and he got into an
What
all pro in
what
his first
defense
two, we'd be doing cartwheels over
what
it.
defense are you running, Mark?
That's it. I keep telling you. And Wilkes runs a man, one man. So
We got
you're
to
really
stop
gonna
acting like
you're
Saleh's
really gonna
deep.
see what Sauce is this year.
all right. Hexakin, do you have anything for John? Because John's been on
Yeah,
overtime,
for
and I
John, not
usually don't
me.
keep John. If it's just to wait,
Well, yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to mention that uh, John was made honorary, member of the 34 team, and then the very next sentence out of his mouth was, "I don't know what the Jets are gonna do." So I don't know about what's going on with John ever since the 34th honorary member has infiltrated his brain cells. Are kind of He's kind of maybe losing some brain cells. I don't know. So John, please, I love your draft analysis. I think you're an expert at it. I think you should run away from the 34 team. I think you should take the honorary jersey and burn it, please, for your
Well,
safety, for your sake.
for yours, just to make a point here.
Hey, John. What I want them to do, I want the Jets to. I want the. We need players. I want them to get out of number 7 pick. Is there anybody? Is there anywhere that they? I want them to continuously. I want them to get out of the first round altogether and just accumulate, second and third rounders and just like stack up and try to get some starters out of that group. Is that possible with the Jets? Like, I want defense. I can't stand what happened to them last year. You said that they were seventh, like that to me, it looks like an illusion. And then the fact that they couldn't stop the run, like I hated seeing that. I want the Jet defense back to its glory. Is there anything that we could do, like if we trade back, that we could solidify maybe safety? I keep thinking maybe another corner, maybe the defensive tackles. I want defense, defense, defense.
Well, see, I'll answer your first point there, which is I might consider uh burning my 3014 jersey, but I don't have one. Never got one to begin with.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah, don't you don't
So
want it. You don't want it. It's on
so
sale, by the
Yeah,
there
way. Last
I
teammate,
time.
can't
it'll fall
I
apart in the
can't
first
even
wash, John.
consider it because it's not here.
Hey, hey, John, we
So
FedExing it tonight.
You're getting a rash.
well, John,
anyways,
don't you live down in Tennessee? So yeah, FedEx's hub
yeah,
is that way.
FedEx is your best shot. That's absolutely it. No, so anyways,
So
I
John,
think
basically we have our safety then next year. Sauce.
here's the problem. Here's the problem with trading down. You got to pick at some point, right? And if you trade down, if you're thinking accumulate picks, you got to hit on them too. Like, I don't think a lot of people understand that to some aspect, because I see draft analysts doing this all the time too. Well, I'm trading down. I'm trading down. I want to get more picks. Okay, but at some point you got to pick. So, are you going to be able to move from 7? Maybe. It depends. Do 3 quarterbacks come off the board before the 7? If that happens, then yeah, you could probably move it for somebody who slipped a little bit, but it's not going to be as likely. It's not a great quarterback class for trading up, so that doesn't look great. I think you're probably going to pick at 7, and you want to do. You just at the end of the day, you got to hit on the picks. And I understand the idea of let's accumulate more capital so that we get more picks, more chances. Yeah, but you got to hit on them. You can trade down all you want. You can accumulate all the capital you want. You got to hit on them. You got to pick at some point.
they also will say trade, guys, but they can't tell you the third best player at that position, like cornerback, for example, after Will Johnson, Travis Hunter, and a guy from Notre Dame. This fan base doesn't know who the next best corner is. They also probably don't watch the film on these guys, and they're talking about man, zone scheme, all this other shit. So yeah, then you go to middle linebacker. They can't tell you who the best middle linebackers are after the guy from Bama in Georgia. I just don't understand it. They say trade people, but when you ask who are you taking, then they're caught with their pants down. And that's what's gonna happen to Aaron Glenn and Moogie. They get away from their guys, accumulate all these picks, like you said. Now it's more holes to fill. You don't hit on these picks, now it looks even more bad.
No, but wait. I never said I'm not. See, you must be mistaking me, my brother. I'm not part of the 34 team. I'm not part of trading Source. I'm not part of trading Wilson. I'm not part of trading nobody. I'm talking about trading draft picks down.
Nah,
Draft.
yeah, I know you. I know
Just
that.
getting. Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
for
think
sure.
real quick. And John, again, thanks for staying so long. Tom and Buckeye, do you have anything for John? Because
Yeah,
I don't want to keep John here too much longer.
Yeah,
All of
I have a
them.
question for John.
Go ahead, Tom, and then Buckeye. Go after that. Go ahead, Tom.
I know this is going to start. This is kind of a hot take. I don't think it's really that hot of a take. But John, if you had to choose between Christian Benford and Sauce Gardner, who's going to have a more productive career? Who would you take?
Mm. Well, it's got to be Sauce.
He did the
Did you
he
see
did
their
the
numbers
noise.
compare? Did you see their comparison in their
No,
numbers?
I've watched Benford play. He's decent. I think he's a low tier one, the high tier two. He's had to play the one in Buffalo, but did you see how they got torched all year?
Who got torched? Benford?
Buffalo, Buffalo, the entire secondary.
Oh,
Um,
I wouldn't say that, but
they gave up. It felt like they couldn't stop the pass for anything, and that's with a defensive line that could get after the quarterback. Um,
if you get a chance, look at the numbers between Benford and Sauce and tell me what you think. Only thing that Sauce has over Benford is obviously he was picked to the Pro Bowl, and I think was Sauce All Pro 1 year, his first
two
year.
Yeah,
years.
and Benford. Yeah,
2 year.
yeah, Benford. He gave up the second. He didn't. He was second right next to Pastor Tad in terms of yards. Literally in terms of yards, reception, targets. They didn't even target Benford. They didn't target Benford.
Yeah.
They targeted.
At the end of the day, man, we're hoping that our coaching staff are great talent evaluators, right? And that's supposedly that is their background, right? So that's why I'm hoping draft back, and then in the middle of the draft, you guys said that there's deep tackles, there's deep running backs. Like I'm thinking if there's such great talent evaluators as where as people are making them out to be, then get as many picks as possible, and hopefully they know, and they can pick the source in the middle rounds.
Hearing John talk about this, by the way, I'm now 100% opposed to the Jets taking a running back in the draft. I think they should wait for a UDFA, because if this class is so deep, get a running back as UDFA and hold that pick. Use that pick for
Yeah,
something
but you got to
else
convince
where there's
you
not a
got to
lot of
convince
supply.
the UDFA to come with you. That's why you
Uh
don't
huh.
plan on UDFAs.
Mm-hmm.
You don't because you don't just get to pick them like in the draft, right? You got to convince them to sign with your team while other teams are trying to sign them.
Thanks. They pretty much can go wherever they want to go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
why they're
Buck.
high priority free agents, because that's and unless you knew, um, hey, if you don't get drafted, can we sign you? Blah blah blah. You get that shit in writing before the draft. Um, you don't ever, and even then, you don't ever plan on high priority free agents. I do. That's saying I think that there's enough talent in the class. When I said that earlier, I'm saying there's enough talent in the class where there's going to be 4 or 5 guys that are going to be contributors this year as high priority free agents in that position group.
Yep.
It's not to say that you plan
Buckeye
on
guy.
hitting on one because again, that's still difficult to do. You got to convince the guy to sign with you. That's the hardest part. Um, I wouldn't plan on that at all. That's why that's the whole point of taking one is that you reserve the rights to them and Nobody else could say anything about it, and you sign into that deal, and it's done. You don't worry about it.
Buckeye, go ahead.
Hey, going back to that Sauce draft, if you looked at your grades that year,
Okay.
and you overlap this coming draft, so like Evan Neal, and then the receivers of London, Olave, Wilson, where do the tackles and where does Tat McMillan like level into that draft? So in other words, if those guys, if the tackles from this draft and Tat were in that draft, where do you rank those guys for that? If that makes sense.
It does. You're gonna have to give me a second to compute. I would say, man, that class was kind of meh
So
too.
the receivers were Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Olave.
Christian
Where does
Watson,
Tat
Christian
rank in that
Watson.
draft?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking 23. That's not the Gardner draft.
Yeah. So wasn't it Sauce, Thibodeau, Garrett Wilson? Wasn't that the same
Yeah, that
draft?
was
Yeah,
the
that was
22
22. That was
draft.
22 draft.
Yep.
Yeah. So there was the two corners. Then there was three receivers.
Right. And I mean,
Evan Neal, it's hard to say because obviously now you got a chance to see him as a bust. I don't know where you graded him out,
Oh,
but
he was my
where did the
highest graded
tackles?
player.
wow.
So and see that's why I respect you. You keep it real, but that's so now the question is these tackles. Where would you have them in that draft? Given that you had Evan Neal ranked so high, and where do you have Tat versus let's say the three receivers in there?
Tet would be over their three receivers.
Really?
Yeah, it was not a high end class. Wilson was my number one in that class. And he had a low first round grade.
Wow.
It looks like in the tackles, it looks like Campbell be 2 behind Neal, and Penning would have been 3 out of Northern Iowa.
You liked him throwing those people into the quarterback.
Oh
And
yeah,
Trevor Penning has not been good as a pro. Do you agree?
yeah. He's too aggressive. Takes too many penalties. Has not translated well. Charles Cross was right behind him, and I like Cross.
Where did you have Aquanu,
He was
John?
projected as a guard, and he had a first round grade on him too. Top 5 player.
Yeah, Augustine, do you have something for John? Because I got to close soon too. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Petey? Good to see you again.
Good to
I've been
likewise, bro.
been
Appreciate you.
taking a sabbatical here from Colts football, but anyway, I wanted to ask you, John, because I heard you a little bit about the um a pass rush group for the Jets, and I wanted to ask you like what's your what's the encouraging sign of this group for 2025? Because they had 43 sacks in total last year. They had 4 games that they didn't record any sack, and around I think 15 sacks. That's 35% of the total sacks for the Jets were done in 2 games. 8 against Houston in Week 9 and 7 against New England on Week 15. So, I wanted to know because there have been several games, but there has been just like 1 sack or no sacks at all within the season. So I wanted to know like what's your encouraging signs for this group in 2025.
What is the what now to the
And encourage like what would be the things that encourage you for these pass rush group of the Jets to be better in 2025?
Well, I think Rashard Weaver's going to help. I think Weaver's going to gives you another really good depth piece. You really need a true starter on the other side of McDonald. You've been hoping Jermaine Johnson's that. He's not. He's a rotational guy. Eric Watts probably takes a step forward this year, but he's not ready to go there yet. I think that Fedarian Mathis and Quinnen Williams together are good. I thought Leonard Taylor played well, considering where he was, I think, a high priority free agent. Derek Notty's going to help lock up against the run a little bit better. He won't be as much of a pass rusher. But no, that's why I thought, that's why I had him taking Shamar. Is if you add him, he's potentially ready to step in, be that guy on the other side of McDonald, and then settle into that rotation with Watts and Johnson and Weaver. And that's not even talking about Michael Clemens. So I think that would put them in the right situation, at least with the group that they have to rotate. Now, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they had 2 games where there were 17 sacks. That does kind of say a little bit different. And that
Yeah,
makes a little bit more sense.
yeah, that's why I was, thinking about it. My last question, I know, I'm a Colts fan, so I don't know if you have any idea or you have thought. Who do you think the Colts would pick in with pick 14 in the first round?
Well, my mock draft, I had him take James Pierce.
Okay, that's a nice one. Very nice one.
I'm not so sure they're going to go that route right now because of some of the stuff that kind of came out about Pierce at the combine.
Yeah.
That's a good question too. I wonder if
because we
that's
need
a really
we
good.
need pass rusher too. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking. Ponder's a guy that they really like, but he's not a first round guy.
Mhm.
You might see Michael Williams come off the board right there too. I spent a lot of time at Georgia last year.
Right. So I wouldn't be surprised either if if we're gonna take a tackle because our starting tackles, both Braden Smith and Ryman, Bernhard Ryman, their contracts expire. So I don't think they would. Chris Ballard would extend both. I think he will extend only Ryman. So I think we will get a tackle early in the draft. I don't know first round, but probably early in the draft.
Yeah, I don't think they'll target one first round. It's not a great class for tackles.
Mhm.
But later in the draft, they might take somebody that they have a shot at developing up. A couple of the guys that they like right now, it looks like, is Dalton Cooper out of Oklahoma State and Bryce Cable out of Kansas.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
John, I got to close up. Appreciate you guys. Mark, June, John, as always, thanks for staying on so long. Speakers, listeners, follow John. John, I'm sure will be back on again, in the next couple of weeks. And John, appreciate all your time and, you talking to us Jeff fans and other fans. We really appreciate it.
Of course, I appreciate you guys.
Hey,
Thank you for having me and the opportunity.
hey, John, did you get that Zelle?
No,
Zell.
no, John, I know you did. Don't check any of your
I'm checking.
emails, John.
I'm looking.
John, your
I'm looking.
emails from FedEx are spoofed because you're
June,
not
get him in
getting.
on the tear it down ending.
No, I'm
You know
closing,
what?
guys. Have a
Hey,
good
hey,
day.
John, we need you to follow this. What we do at the end of the show, we tear it down. So all the 34 team members, what do we do?
Tear it down.
Tear it down, baby.
John, can we get a tear it down from you,
John, have
brother?
a good day. Don't bite.
Let's
Don't.
tear. Yeah, let's everybody. Good day. Tear it down.
Yes,
There you
indeed.
go.